Welcome to Pensari Basketball Live, and we are going to be talking about a hot button topic in the Raptors space right now. Whose responsibility is it to fit in or fit out? Why is Pascal Siakam always doubled? Why is the paint always clogged? And what is going wrong with the Raptors offense? Give a like for that intro music right there. We're going to slowly fade that out. We're going to break some tape. We're going to break down some tape. We're going to look at some tweets. There's been a bit of a raging debate going on Raptors Twitter, and I don't blame them, right? You're 2-7. 2-4. Oh, I hope I'm not projecting the future right there. We are 2-4, but calm down, Raptors Nation. We are tied for 8th. We are tied with teams like Cleveland, New York. You're tied with Miami, a team that was just in the finals last year. So, early sample size, it's always difficult to judge a new offense. And this is why I had previously stated that my goal going into the season was to not really make strong judgments about this offense until about the 10 to 20 game mark, until we could see what it was and see guys sort of adjust. And I have totally broken my promise on that. I have been very judgmental and critical of certain elements of this offense, and clearly it isn't working. It hasn't looked great. The half-court offense sucks. And there's two schools of thought, right? One school of thought is that Darko Rajakovic has come in and taken the ball out of our best player's hands, which is Pascal Siakam, 2-time All-NBA. And he has handed it to his golden children, Scottie Barnes and Dennis Schroeder. And this is why the offense is suffering, because, these guys are just not as good as Pascal. Naturally, anyone doesn't need to, it's not a rocket science argument that if you take the ball out of your best player's hands and put it in, like if the Lakers put the ball in Austin Reeves' hands and told LeBron to just stand in the corner and wait for Austin Reeves to create shots, their offense would suck. But I don't think LeBron and Pascal are as close as some people would want you to think. I think this debate is a little bit lopsided. And as someone who has studied numbers my whole life, and someone, who's very mathematically oriented, it drives me kind of banana sandwich when people misuse numbers, misuse stats to present an argument that I don't believe is accurate. One argument that people often used when talking about the 2021 draft class, when I consistently, for the last 2 years, have said, Scottie Barnes better than Cade Cunningham, Scottie Barnes better than Jalen Green, closed the door on that. Really, the debate was Scottie and Evan Mobley. People always said, but Cade has no help. That's why he's posting negative win shares, man. He's on a worse team. Look at all the help that Scottie has. He has Fred and Pascal and OG, but Cade has nothing. Well, this year, Scottie has been elevated to first option. To some extent, you can make an argument that he's been the first option in this offense. Cade is currently the first option. And the results are speaking for themselves. If you're good at basketball, you're good at basketball. You find ways to win. Alperen Şengün and Scottie Barnes have been head and shoulders above their draft class this year. And I don't think that that's an accident. They are two players that create a lot of space through their size and through their intelligence. But let's stick on topic. This Pascal Scottie thing, this really shouldn't be a debate, right? One guy's 22, one guy's 29. We know how good a player Pascal Siakam is, but apparently this has divided, polarized fans on Twitter. Been on Twitter Spaces, reading the comments, reading the tweets, and some very prominent, very well-respected people have come out in support of this argument that Pascal Siakam needs to have the ball more, that ultimately, look at his usage, look at the offense, draw your own conclusions. And of course, if you're a big fan of Pascal Siakam, you cry foul. How could you do this? How could you do this to your all-NBA player? How could you do this to such a great player who's been so loyal to your franchise that came up with you? This is Masai Ujiri, snaking Pascal, all sorts of these, in my opinion, just terrible takes. But you don't need a lot when you're smart and you know how to use numbers to create a take that really takes off. I wanted to back off, man. This year, I thought we could just enjoy the ushering in. We got everything we wanted. We got Fred gone. We got our new coach, got motion offense. Scottie's taking a step. I genuinely in preseason thought Pascal was buying in and, that he'd taken a step. Okay, we got what we wanted. Now we can stop being at each other's throats, can stop taking shots at each other. I can stop, calling out William Liu and whoever else. And we can just keep it straight. You support your guy. Great. I'm not. Please go back and listen to all the post game, stuff from preseason. I wasn't saying anything about Pascal Siakam. I thought he was doing a great job. I was very impressed. I think he got an A grade from me in the preseason. This is not unabashedly, slandering a guy. He's had some very promising stretches as a Raptor. He's also had some very depressing stretches as a Raptor. And I think in both cases, I've kind of called it out both ways. But you do get to a point with a certain player where the trends start to really just alarm you, where the same thing keeps happening year over year over year, and it becomes harder and harder to move off of it when you've seen it so many times. Last year, a lot of people were very vocally critical of Scottie Barnes. Why can't you be more aggressive in this offense? As some of us said, hey, man, the offense is not really working for him. He can't just attack into space that doesn't exist. He's got to be, continuing to move the ball. And I'll agree that Scottie wasn't as assertive as he needed to be last year, for sure. I think injuries played a part into that. I think he played a part into that. I think some of it was deliberate. Some of it was to allow other guys to get their touches and then kind of take off in the fourth quarter. But that's not really how the media space presented it at the time, right? They consistently said, no, he's taking quarters off. And this, this myth has continued to be peddled even now. Because now every time he comes out in the first quarter and they're like, it's so nice to see him playing all four quarters. It's so nice to see him in better condition. He's 2 minutes into the game. How are you judging his conditioning, right? So here's the thing. I know that it can sound very unhinged when you start taking, drastic positions against other people in the content space, media space. And what are they really even saying? Are they saying anything wrong? Is Scottie being elevated? Yes. And, ultimately, is the offense really bad? Yes. But if you keep saying those two things in the same tweet over and over, there is subtext to what you're saying, right? The subtext is it's because of him. See, because here's the thing. You can say the same thing two different ways. Let me give you an example. Look, I used to write. I am a writer. I write scripts. I'm a film director. I run a film festival. I'm a sports writer. I'm a creative writer. I've written books, not any that you would know or anything that's been, overly well published. But I mean, my God, I've written pretty much for 20 years. I understand how this thing goes. I do. I promise you, I do. And so over and over again, when you keep introducing two ideas together, they become somewhat related in the mind of the reader, right? It's just how it works. Things that fire together, wire together. This is the neuroscience of manipulation and bad takes. See, if I keep saying over and over last year, for instance, that the offense, Pascal Siakam needs help, the offense is bad. Pascal Siakam needs help, the offense is bad. Or the starters are playing so many minutes, bench sucks. Naturally, you're going to walk away thinking, well, who put the bench there? Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri is at fault, right? You're never going to say that the coach is at fault. You'll never say that Pascal is at fault. You'll never say the starter's at fault. You'll never say any of that. No, you'll say Masai Ujiri is at fault because I've put the 2 and 2 on the table and I've just given it to you to put together for yourself. Bench sucks. Starters are being run into the ground because the bench sucks. Now, we've never really, prior to Nick Nurse unraveling himself, we never really talked about how little opportunity the bench got, how little consistency the bench had to find rhythm, how disjointed some of those lineups were. We never really talked about that because that didn't serve the narrative. The narrative was Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton, all these guys, they suck. And I'm not even debating that they didn't suck or that they did suck. That's not even the point. My point is this is how ideas become wired together. So if you consistently say that Scottie Barnes has elevated to first option and then keep in the same breath pointing out that the offense is terrible, it leads a lot of people to think that he's the reason the offense is terrible. And I don't think he is. So today I want to look at some tape. I want to look at some interesting tweets. I want to understand, how this all happens. And I want to understand really why the paint is never open for the Toronto Raptors. Let's hit that intro and let's get to Okay, now please bear with me as I go through a bit of a tweet storm. Okay, I want to show you how this happens. And look, this is from last year. Okay, this is from last season. And I want you to really understand the transparency of how this is being laid out, how this is being created. Because you see, every good storyteller knows that in order to have a second act, you need to set certain things up in the first act. As I said, I run a film festival. We watch 500 films a year. I understand act structure. I've written an article on it. So in order sometimes to tear things down, you build them up so you can tear them down later. The story writes itself years in advance. The event's hype, all the questions about toughness crescendoed at the graduation. And then comes the teardown. Then comes the vilification. Then comes the smear campaign. Then comes the 10 years of, processing forgiveness. Then comes the homecoming. Then comes the feel-good moment. Then comes the tribute. Then comes catharsis. In every single step, you clicked. You clicked on the video. You clicked on the article. You clicked on the article that said Vince was selling plays. You clicked on the article that said he was an ascending superstar. You clicked on the hype that said he was the next Michael Jordan. You clicked on the hype that said he was uncoachable. You clicked on everything. It's an arc. You can't just say this guy's great and then the next day this guy's great. Next day this guy's great. Oh my God, this guy's so great. Only a functional human being would just appreciate something for what it is. No. We need to build things up, tear them down, build them back up, tear them down, build things up, tear them down, over and over and over again. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, over and over and over and over. We just keep doing it. Maybe ESPN's taking the lead. I learned at a very young age, because I was probably surrounded by a lot of people that were like this, to read through the words. Okay. So I don't take people's words at face value, especially when those people show me that they are morally bankrupt and kind of shady. And the truth is, I didn't grow up like these people. I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I didn't grow up with two parents. I didn't grow up with money. I didn't grow up like this. So I've had to be extra cautious. I'm navigating a world in which I do not belong. I don't want to present myself as an outsider, but it is very much an outsider thing. Every time I would walk in through a door, if I would try to, get a job in finance, I always felt different than everybody else. My teeth weren't as straight. My skin wasn't as clean. I had scars on my face. I had a different backstory. I grew up differently. And I always try to keep it down. Keep it down. Yeah, sometimes you just want to blurt out in the middle of a meeting, are you because that's what you heard when you're growing up. I always wanted to think that this channel was full of people who could see past that. People who are kind of real, people who kept it real. And I've met a lot of you in real life, and I feel like you are people of integrity. And I think real see real. It's an old, I don't know, hood proverb. I don't know. But hear me out on this. I want you to read this for what it is. I want you to read it for what it is and tell me what you see. This is flashing back to 2022. Okay. This is a very prominent person in the Toronto Raptors space. He's someone who's had access. He's someone who's very well respected. And this is not me throwing shade at anybody. I've watched some of his videos. I like them. I like them a lot. But it was kind of disturbing to see this. Okay, I'll bite. Who is Pensari Basketball? 7,568 views on that one. So I was curious. Is this someone who was trying to maybe give a really small channel that was trying to rise up a little bit of pop? That's very nice of him. I assumed positive intent. And then I read the comments. See, I call it plausible deniability. When I ask who someone is, I leave the door open to you to trash them. If I trash them myself, I leave the door open to me for backlash. You see, this is how smart people ruin other people. Now, look at the comment that is most telling. Can be a little overzealous, but at least puts out real analysis instead of hot takes that are not that hot. Stilldale saying, and this was one of, by the way, very few supportive comments. There were a lot of really negative comments. There was no pushback from this person about the negative comments. The negative comments were like, cool, no problem. He's building a house of worship for Scottie, says one person. No problem. No pushback there. Hey, nothing. But here's a positive comment, by Stilldale. Shout outs to Stilldale. Can be a little overzealous, but at least puts out real analysis instead of hot takes that are not that hot. And he says, again, I have heard the complete opposite. Oh, uh-oh. Dwayne Casey used to say, you told on yourself. Here's the problem. When you do that, you have just completely defeated the point of your tweet to begin with, because your tweet is, who is Pensari Basketball? But you already know. See, this is where I went crazy last year. I got upset because I would reach out to some of these people and I would say, hey, if you have a problem with me, let's talk about it. And they would just say, I have no problem with you. I don't mind you. I've never even heard of you. I just checked out your videos. Cool. You have videos. That's nice. And then you feel like, oh, am I imagining things? And then someone who works with these people, but is maybe not very much fond of these people, sends you an entire text thread of people talking about you. And then you're like, well, then why didn't you just say that? See, I don't understand that. If I talk bad about you, I think most people with integrity can understand that. If I talk poorly about you, I would just say to your face that I don't like you. That's kind of how this works, right? You will never see me texting about somebody behind their back and smiling to their face. That to me is low quality human beings. So I guess I don't have to examine why people don't like me. I'm very outrageous. Sometimes I can be very breathy. Maybe I don't go about things the right way. I'm trying to adjust. I'm trying to even address this, which is very annoying to me, in a way that is hopefully respectful, but hopefully can shed some light. Because you see, last night, 4 people messaged me and sent me an article and several tweets by a very prominent, very well-respected Toronto media member, and people who have access to the Raptors, a media pass, people who are very credible, and people who are, by the way, very difficult to disagree with without looking automatically stupid, because they're data-driven, they have stats for every single thing they want to present, and it's very hard when someone says, these are the stats, to then dissect why those stats are not true without sounding like you're denying reality. Is this gaslighting? Is this a complete different philosophy on basketball? I don't know. But this is why I have always preferred to go to the tape and let people decide for themselves who is double teamed, why they're double teamed, and allow people to make the decision for themselves. Now, maybe I'm doing the same thing they're doing. I'm cherry picking possessions. So I encourage everybody to do one thing for me. And this is your aha moment. I think we can all agree that the Raptors are a very good defensive team. Yes. I think we can agree that they have shown competence as a defensive team. Yes. Okay. We can agree that Scottie, OG, Pascal, Schroeder, Jakob should all be able to very effectively guard most teams on most nights. There are not a lot of teams that present tremendous mismatches for a team that is so equipped to deal with mismatches. So I want you to ask a very good question. Go back and study the 2 games against Philadelphia and go check out Tyrese Maxey's paint touches. Go check out how a 21-year-old is manipulating your incredible defense and getting clean looks at the basket. How often is he double teamed? How often is he sucking in a defender and pushing out? How often is he taking contested layups? How often is he beating his man off the dribble and then getting clean to the basket for an open look? Now, this is not a Sixers pod. This is a Raptors pod. Why am I talking about Tyrese Maxey? Well, I'm talking about Tyrese Maxey as just as I could talk about any ascending star in the NBA, because I'm trying to present to you a case of what a star looks like, what an offensive engine looks like. If you go back and study LeBron tape, LeBron is not constantly doubled on his dunks. He's not constantly doubled on every layup. The truth is that statistics are very strange. I studied stats at U of T because I was so curious to know how people bend stats and how people use stats to lie. Because you see, this is how the world changes. Truth be told. You see, for a very, very long period of time, not to bring this completely away from basketball, but for a very, very long period of time, people used incarceration statistics against minorities to suggest that minorities were more prone to crime. Obviously, if you're someone who saw that a Black, Hispanic, brown person was more likely to go to jail than a white person, you could naturally conclude, if you're stupid, that a person of color was far more likely to commit a crime than a person who was white. Never examining the statistical bias in how those numbers came to be, how policing is done in Black and brown communities versus white communities, disproportionate wealth gaps, all sorts of things. Statistics need to be really scrutinized because people, especially people who peddle stats, I always wonder if they know better. I've always wondered if they know what they're doing or if they don't know what they're doing. And because I've decided this year to lead with positive intent, I'm going to assume that they don't know. I'm also going to assume that I could be wrong. So I'll leave it up to you to decide. But when I got those messages yesterday on Instagram with people telling me that, hey, Rob, this is being said and I don't know how to respond to it, are we wrong? Are we wrong about Pascal Siakam's role in this offense? I had to make this video. I had to. So I feel compelled to because I see the second act. Do you understand? I see the second act. I see the first act right now. The first act is we create a situation where we create a narrative that Masai Ujiri has chosen to put the ball in Pascal out of Pascal Siakam's hand, a player who, by the way, is a champion, has come up in your system, is very deserving to be a first option for some teams out there for sure. He is an all-NBA performer. He's an all-star. He's a very hard worker, and he's a very good player. And I fully understand that your offense did look better last year technically with him than it does right now with him kind of, standing around setting picks and cutting. I understand that. So I understand also that there could be a pushback if inevitably he is traded and the offense falls off a cliff and the Raptors end up in the lottery surrendering a lottery pick, so that people can say, well, see, you got what you wanted. You ran Pascal out of town and look at it now. Look at it now. That's the second act. Okay. And then the third act is you do to Scottie what some people are doing to Pascal right now in 2 years. That's how this is going to crumble. And I say, not on my watch. Not going to happen, because we are going to poke, and we're going to poke into the tape, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about whether Scottie has been unfairly given his usage, or whether Dennis is unfairly being given his usage. I have been on record saying I would definitely not run this offense through Dennis Schroeder, but I don't think that's really the argument that people are having on Twitter right now. The Twitter argument right now is, why not more Pascal Siakam? This offense has been so bad. Why not put the ball back in Siakam's hands and see what he can do? He's so good at scoring. I've had plenty of Twitter spaces with K Money and whatever, and there are some Pascal Siakam fans there who can't stand the notion that there's a coach out there who doesn't see him necessarily as the driver of his offense. How could this be? Right? Are we just leaving him at the woodshed? Are we genuinely, like, here's a genuine question that I want to ask you. Do you genuinely think that the Toronto Raptors feel that they would be better with Siakam running kind of Barnes possessions, or maybe kind of being closer to that 27, 28% usage that he's been in the past? Do you feel that the Raptors feel that that will be more beneficial to their overall offense? Do you feel that Siakam is being shafted? Let me know in the comments. I don't know. This community is very disproportionate. Like, I don't think this is a fair sample of the entire Raptors community at large. But if you're a Raptor fan who's a very big Pascal Siakam fan who sometimes hate watches these videos, I really want to ask you genuinely, do you believe that to be the case? Because I asked a lot of people before I made this video, before I decided to make this video, and they said, yes, this is exactly how we feel. That if you were to basically go back to what you're doing last year, then this would be better, right? This motion offense is garbage. 0.5 is not working, et cetera, et cetera. Paint is packed. Jakob is shit. Schroeder is shit. Barnes is overrated, et cetera, et cetera. It's a conspiracy against Siakam, right? It's kind of like what people were saying I did with Jeff Doughton, right? I kept saying free Jeff Doughton, and they were just like, oh, he's stoking the flames of conspiracy against Jeff Doughton. Look, man, the Jeff Doughton situation was very straightforward. He didn't have a contract. Someone who was considerably worse as a basketball player than him did, and they chose a considerably worse player, thinking that the gap between them wasn't huge enough to take the hit on the contract. It's actually just that simple. Malachi has outperformed what I thought he would be, so I take the L. This is an important part of doing what we do to any content creators out there and media members. I think it's really, really good to acknowledge when you're wrong. I said I would take Jabari Smith over Paolo and Chet Holmgren. Last year, I said that Walker Kessler was a terrible pick last year. I stand on those L's. I stand on those L's because I was dead wrong. Dead wrong, and I can admit it. Chet has been freaking amazing. Jabari Smith has not been amazing so far. I remain hopeful that he'll be good. Walker Kessler is really making me rethink the way I see big men in the college game. And you learn and you move on. You take the L. It's okay. Everyone's going to be wrong. You say 50,000 things a year about a sport. You have to assume you're at best going to bat 60. If you're really good, maybe you'll bat 65. But for the other 35, man, just accept it. I have been very vocally critical of Sam Vecini, partially because I think that his take on Scottie, zero level scorer, that whole thing has been very much venom in the well for how Raptor fans got introduced to Scottie. I thought that was a very difficult thing for him. But honestly, I don't think that he is really beating the drum on it. Like, he adjusted pretty quickly. He talked about voting for Scottie for Rookie of the Year. So I'm sorry, Sam, if you ever end up watching this or if someone ends up clipping this for you. I've been very, very unfair to you over the years and not really acknowledging how quickly you moved off of that and acknowledged it. What I think exacerbates it is when someone who has a blue check mark, who's very credible, like Sam Vecini, who's considered widely as a draft expert, says something like this. And the media space that's here, which was very pro Jalen Suggs initially, takes that quote and starts hammering it over and over and over. Anchoring bias is real. talk to anybody, talk to a psychologist, talk to a neuroscientist. Anchoring bias is real. We will almost always judge things by the first bit of information. And the first bit of information builds the second bit of information, the third bit of information, the fourth bit of information, right? If someone tells you that the first thing you find out about them is that they're an ex-con, the second thing you find out about them is that they run a charity for homeless children, I tell you, if I reverse the order of the information which you found it, it becomes a very hopeful story, right? They run a charity for homeless people. And a day later, I say, oh, by the way, they used to be an ex-con. You're like, wow, they've come so far. They've come so far. If I tell you they're an ex-con first, and then a day later, I tell you they run a charity for homeless children, you might wonder if the homeless charity is actually an embezzlement fund. This is really a lesson in critical thought. Let's look at these tweets in order. Now, this is the same person, S. Fandiar. Pascal Siakam's usage rate tonight was 18.1%. This would be in line with guys like Duncan Robinson, Jalen Suggs, and Tobias Harris. Yikes. First of all, Tobias Harris cooked him, just an FYI. So maybe if he can go back and not use Tobias Harris, this argument would be a little bit more relevant. But I get what you're saying. This is below league average usage, right? 18%. This is below a league average starter. So, okay, this is bad. This is really bad. Pascal Siakam needs more touches. No disagreement here. Next, an all NBA caliber player is being used. This is from Caitlin Cooper, who covers the Indiana Pacers, who has been extensively on Raptors Republic. She has been brought on to podcasts by Pull Up Trey and Samson Folk. And she genuinely, I've read some of her work. She's a very smart person. Like, I read her last article on 538 on Eric Gordon's shooting gravity. It's great. These are very data-driven, analytical people who really do study the numbers. And, kudos to you. Not throwing any shade. However, an all-NBA caliber player, this is a 6-second clip that she has used of Pascal Siakam, being a burn cutter on a play, and I guess Dennis drives and then doesn't pass him the ball. So an all-NBA cutter, a caliber player, is being used as a burn cutter to remove help at the nail, play through the shooter rising up from the corner, only the ball never gets reversed to the shooter rising up from the corner, and the help is unmoved at the rim. Now, it's one thing to say this, right? In the context, there's no flagrant here. It's 100% analytical. There's absolutely zero flagrant foul there, right? This is 100% true. That's exactly what happened in the play. She called it exactly as it was. But how are the people that you're talking to on Twitter interpreting that? And what responsibility do you have to how people interpret your message? This is the gray area of plausible deniability that I always talk about, right? This is where the information and how you sequence it is very important. This is where context is important. This is where you have to say small sample size, but you have to, because if you allow something that you are saying to be grossly misrepresented and used for a complete political gain. No, I'm not talking Nietzsche and, the movement in Germany in the World War II. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, like, if your text can be so easily manipulated, so clearly manipulated in order to peddle a narrative that you don't technically want to peddle yourself, then therein lies the gray line or the gray area between plausible deniability and moral corruption, right? So you can't actually point to this and say, this is wrong. This is a misrepresentation. She changed the play. No, that's exactly what happened. But why not present the full context of how it happened, how rare that is in the context of how often things are happening? But let's take it further. Let's talk about double teams and usage and turnovers and all that stuff. So she was not the only person. Wait, that's not it. Here we go. Then Samson chimed in. Now, I've been on record many times on this channel, and people will never let me forget it, that I have been very vocally supportive of Samson. I've watched his stuff. I genuinely like most of his stuff. I have learned a tremendous lot from his article about Scottie's post playmaking on Raptors Republic. Here, extension of a free promo for Raptors Republic. Great content, genuinely some of the better content out there. And I really appreciate that the Raptors space has almost an incubator, which is creating so many smart people. There are so many great people who've come from Raptors Republic. Blake Murphy, Eric Kareen, William Liu. I mean, some are not like the others. Obviously, I'm a very big fan of Eric Kareen, and I guess I've become a bigger fan of Blake Murphy. Maybe I'm not as big a fan of William Liu. I'm a huge, huge nerd for Louis Zatzman. That's a lot of good people to be coming out of one organization. This is not vilifying the organization at all. Actually, the organization is great. It's a good channel. They talk hoops. They make sense a lot. They break down tape. They break down Grady. They're right a lot, actually. And I really appreciate them for it. But sometimes they're wrong. And I think it would be good if they can acknowledge that, right? So here's the thing. So this is Samson on Scottie. He's not running a good offense. He's turning the ball over a lot, but that doesn't really matter. But it does matter, you see, because when that's the first thing you say, then everything else you say is rooted to the first thing you said. Maybe it's an accident, right? If you say he's doing so well, he's been better than I ever thought possible, I'm really sorry I wanted to trade him for Kevin Durant. I was totally wrong. The last thing to fix is the turnovers. It's a completely different message when you flip it. But when you introduce the turnovers first and you say the offense isn't clicking and then you pepper in your little, that is, in my opinion, textbook plausible deniability. No one can say you didn't give him his flowers. No one can say you're anti-Barnes when you're saying that. But it is subtle. It's subtly manipulative. And I'm very confident in saying this. I'll present why after. The second tweet was, even if the Raptors aren't winning, once again, peppering in the first thing first, right? Putting Scottie on a classic star trajectory is good. 1, get big numbers, max out your usage. Might be sloppy, you probably lose. Everything you say from this point on is irrelevant because you have already put into me, my mind, the reader, that losing and putting the ball in Scottie's hands are correlated. You're introducing correlation and presenting it as causation. Sometimes you do have to be a little bit smarter than the smartest person in the room to get away with shit like this. If you are a person who understands even the most basic logic, you don't need to have a degree in sentential logic to understand what's being said, right? Am I stupid? Tell me in the chat, okay? Second, refine usage and decision-making as team gets better around you. 3, big numbers, good team, win games. Stated truly, truly like a genius. Okay, number 3. I got upset. I said, some people think Scottie is being popped up above Pascal Siakam in order to develop. Others think he's legitimately overtaken him. Unsurprisingly, the same people who wanted Suggs, who wanted to trade him for KD, I should have added, if the tweet limit allowed me, wanted to trade him for Dame, have found a new slant. It's okay to just take an L. That's my response. Now, Samson responded, you're inventing subtext that actively goes against what I've written and said. Barnes isn't even getting Siakam's possessions this year. Dennis, Jakob, and Precious have been. It's not Barnes versus Siakam, mate. But doesn't it feel like it? Right? Am I wrong? But of course, the tweet has oodles and oodles of plausible deniability. There's no way I could ever prove it, right? There's no way I could ever prove it. But tell me how people have taken your article and your words and peddled an entire movement around it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere on X. It's everywhere on Twitter. I present you with one bit of logical and sensible advice for your mental health. Don't go on Twitter right now. Don't go on Reddit. Just don't. But if you do, examine what is being said, where it's coming from, how it's being said. Again, it only took, let me give you an example. Last year, right? You had a coach who has never met Scottie come on to the JD Bunkus podcast and suggest that maybe he didn't work very hard this summer because he didn't take a leap. No mention of the offense not working around him. No mention of, Fred VanVleet and him maybe butting heads. No mention of anything because you have met Siakam. You have met Fred VanVleet. So we know where you're getting your takes from. So here's the thing. If I'm a host, and even if I wasn't pro Scottie, I think I would ask, that's a pretty big charge to lay on somebody. If for instance, we have a caller who comes on here and says Pascal Siakam doesn't work hard, my first question would be, how do you know that? It doesn't matter if it agrees with something that I'm trying to push. I just need to know how you know. That's just fair. That's keeping it a buck. That's keeping it gangster. I don't know. It's just keeping it straight. How would you know? But here's the thing. Sometimes we ask questions that give us answers that we actually want to hear, right? So the response I said was, there's two ways to interpret things, two ways to say them. Broader context. Darko is putting the ball in Dennis and Scottie's hands more. Offense is struggling. Siakam's usage is low. He's your best player. Ignores some very large holes. Namely, number one, Barnes has actually been efficient as hell. Number two, the spacing required to make the offense work requires buy-in from all five players. See? Not naming names. 3, All-NBA Siakam was less efficient than Scottie this year. And 4, when you attack late, slow, or out of the offense, double teams come. I present you back to my Tyrese Maxey argument earlier. Why are the Raptors not successfully able to double team Tyrese Maxey possessions the way that the Sixers are able to double team Pascal Siakam possessions in the paint? It must be because Tyrese Maxey has more space. That's definitely one way to look at it. It's absolutely one way to look at it. And I don't blame you if you view it that way, because all year, all offseason, I've heard that the Raptors have no space. They have no shooters. They're going to struggle shooting. May I remind you, please, that the Raptors currently are actually a better three-point shooting team than probably most people projected. They've had a 53% three-point shooting outburst. I don't think three-point shooting has necessarily been a huge Achilles heel for this team that people thought it would be. But what's interesting is their three-point shooters haven't even started hitting. Otto has barely played. He's played one game. He helped a lot. The Raptors blew out the Bucks with Otto. Not because of Otto, but Otto was definitely a part of it. Let me clarify my take on that before you run with it. Grady was brought in to be a lights-out shooter. Apart from one game, he's been really, really struggling. But ultimately, taking great shots within the offense. You cannot judge an offense whether you cannot judge an offense on makes and misses. Only casuals do that, especially on a 6-game sample size. Shooting variance is a huge thing. Sometimes teams just play bad for a week, especially when they're adjusting to an offense which runs completely counterintuitive to the offense they ran last year, and a lot of players are going to struggle. But this is way too early to be suggesting that you were right in the offseason. But I do understand why some people who might have said that this team is going to struggle so much in terms of three-point shooting would feel a need right now to double down on a very bad take. Because right now, if Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes and OG Anunoby even remotely come close to what they're shooting above the break, and Dennis Schroeder, he's not going to continue shooting 50% from the three, but if he continues to shoot even 37% or 36%, if he's taken a step as a shooter, or if this offense has unlocked him, or just playing for Darko is just giving him a new level of swag and confidence, or maybe having the ball more in his hands, just giving him that, well, then I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that you have spacing issues. If Gary Trent Jr. and Jalen McDaniels and Grady Dick, 3 players who have struggled mightily from the three, that are all gunners and consistently were considered the biggest hope for the Raptors spacing, those guys haven't really played well yet. It's a 6-game sample size. It's an 82-game season. Chill. This could actually be a pretty good three-point shooting team. But every single day, when you listen to the post-game on the Rapscast or whatever, they continue to double down on what they said. Hey, we told you this is going to be a bad three-point shooting team. We told you the offense was going to struggle. Okay. So why is the offense struggling? Why is Pascal Siakam doubled? Two schools of thought, okay? Two very different schools of thought. School of thought number one, he is an incredible player that defenses really react to. People always bring up how often he was double teamed last year. People are like, he's one of the most double teamed players. Every time I get a nonsensical take on Twitter, I always know where it's coming from, especially when they start espousing stats that they have no context on and have not acquired themselves. I almost want to do a rant, in Jurassic Park. Before you stopped to know what you had, you wanted to package it and you wanted to run with it and you wanted to tweet about it. It's the same thing. Look, two schools of thought on why people are doubled. Number one, they are actually just great players that teams have no way of stopping one-on-one, and that ultimately defenses are responding to them because maybe they're not the greatest passers out of double teams, and teams want to make sure that guy is not killing them. It's scheme related. Every team is going to play differently. The Bucks, for some reason, despite having Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo, decided not to go aggressive drop against Jakob Poeltl. That made all your spacing issues go away because they treated Jakob Poeltl like he could shoot for some reason. They played him on the level of the screen, and it unlocked a lot of the playmaking advantages that otherwise he won't have when teams drop. Do you remember last year when Scottie Barnes went nuts against the Brooklyn Nets? They played him like a shooter. Ben Simmons was guarding him 35 feet away from the basket for some reason, like he's Steph Curry, and he went right past him. If he backs off, that driving angle isn't there. I mean, Scottie would still probably try to score because he was in his vibe or whatever, but Scottie was being assertive, but my God, you're playing him completely incorrectly. That's not that. Now, you didn't see me come out on the postgame and be like, see, defenses respect Scottie Barnes as a shooter because they're picking him up 35. No, the defense is wrong. The defense is playing him wrong, just like the Bucks defense played Jakob wrong. But let me tell you something. When the scouting report on a player is that a player is a very, very poor, has poor reactions out of double teams, then the scouting report will be to throw a double team, throw unpredictable double teams. Why do you think that we always double team Joel Embiid more than we double Nikola Jokic? Because one of those players responds very well to double teams and the other one doesn't. Joel Embiid, he's going to turn the ball over a lot, and he's going to throw panic passes that don't generate an advantage for the offense. Nikola Jokic, when you double him, he wants you to double him. When you triple him, you're going to die because he's going to get it out to the best shooter in the best spot, right in the shooting pocket. This is the advantage of gifted playmakers. For years, we have tried to make Pascal Siakam a big playmaker. I don't think he's a particularly great playmaker, actually. And I think that the second school of thought on why you're doubled is exactly that. You're doubled because you don't see double teams. You're doubled because you're a high usage over dribbler who often attacks late, often attacks into congestion, and does not have the ability right now, for whatever reason, to blow past your man the way you were earlier. See, sometimes with quick twitch athletes, I often say the fall off is quick. It's very quick. Isaiah Thomas had a really quick fall off. Derrick Rose, really quick fall off. Allen Iverson, really quick fall off. Far cry for me, by the way, to be comparing Pascal Siakam to those three guys, because they were much better in terms of score, in terms of their scoring efficiency, not scoring efficiency, but overall scoring volume and scoring prolificness. Is that a word? That's going to be used to explain that I'm an absolute idiot. It's okay. No worries. I got my friends. I'm good. But the fall off is huge. When you can't get past your man and your entire life, you've been quicker than your man, you have to find a new advantage. In fact, this motion offense, 0.5 offense, finding Siakam above the break for these extended threes, like he's Carlton Towns, I think against the Bucks, they left him open. He made him pay. I think he had 8 threes. He had 8 3-point attempts. This is the way his career needs to go. But this is not the way they want his career to go. No, they want to give him the ball in the middle of the floor and allow him to dribble, attack, get paint touches, collapse the defense, find shooters like he's some makeshift version of LeBron. I think that Pascal Siakam's double team rate is a symptom of how he reacts to double teams instead of evidence of how defenses react to Pascal Siakam. I've seen some of the smartest defenses in the league guard him straight up. I've seen him get the second or third best defender on a particular night. But if you want to prove that he's on everyone's scouting report and everyone's really scared of him, you're going to point to the time that Alex Caruso took him. And you're going to be like, see, Scottie Barnes wouldn't do well in Alex Caruso. Oh my God. I think I can make an entire highlight package of Scottie Barnes owning Alex Caruso. See, if you're a Siakam fan, you're going to say they put their best defender on Pascal Siakam. If you're a Scottie fan, you're going to say every time they put Alex Caruso on Scottie Barnes, he killed him. He went over him. He's too big. He's too strong. He can't guard him. He can't guard him. Every single time he can't guard him, bro. Look at his efficiency rate. That big dunk last year, that was on Alex Caruso. He's owned him. So there's two ways to look at the argument, right? And what I'm trying to say is, let's not be so corrupt as to ignore the other side. If you're going to present yourself as very analytical, if you're not going to present yourself as, some hooligan with hot takes on Twitter, I mean, some people, nobody takes him seriously. They say, Pascal Siakam's a bum. Nobody's taking you seriously. He's not a bum. Some people say Scottie Barnes is better than Kawhi Leonard in his prime. Nobody's taking you seriously either. I often get confused, I think, incorrectly for a Scottie Stan account. I'm actually trying to be pretty objective about basketball. I understand that last year, a lot of people said I was crazy because I said that Scottie was this good. I said Scottie took the step last year. People didn't see it. They looked at his numbers. They pointed to the numbers. They said, what are you seeing? The reason that I calmed down a lot, and if a lot of people have noticed that I've calmed down a lot since last year. I mean, if this was last year, I would be screaming, crazy things. And probably maybe I've already gone too far on this one. But a lot of people said last year that I was just wrong. And I got really angry, and then I would get back and forth. And even today, there was a couple of people, pointing to, Pascal Siakam's double teamed so much. That's why Scottie's open. No, that's not true. But I can just say now, I don't think that's true, but let's agree to disagree. It's actually much better this year. I feel a lot calmer. The reason I feel a lot calmer is because of the people that I got to talk to this summer. It didn't make me arrogant. I don't think it actually calmed me down a lot. It didn't make me think like, oh, see, I'm right. Now let me go and really bully some people. Actually, it just quieted the doubts in my mind that I don't know what I'm talking about, because it's very difficult, to say one thing and then have your coach, players, media space say the complete opposite and not assume that you're absolutely nuts because, you're saying Scottie's a star and he's averaging 15 points per game on low efficiency. You're an idiot. It's very easy to start questioning yourself. But I stuck with it, stuck with him, and right now it's paying off. So, and I'm not touting the told you so drum, by the way. You don't see me refreshing takes. You don't see me posting every day. You don't be like, oh my God, this guy wanted to trade Scottie for Kevin Durant, go spam. I'm not doing that because honestly, it's 6 games. It's a really small sample size. And, while I think that he took this jump last year and this year, and I think he's going to be a great player and that he's going to be future MVP, there's really no reason for me to be salty about it. You don't really see me overly hyping the stay on your side crowd. Those people, who are like, oh, if you were slandering Scottie, I'm going to pull up your DM. Screw that, man. Who cares? People are wrong all the time. I'm wrong all the time. It's okay. Come on this side. It's okay. You got an ascending superstar on your team who's 22 years old, who's doing a lot of really fantastic things on the basketball court. I think it's okay to just be okay with that, right? Maybe even more than okay. Maybe even celebrate it. My God. And not celebrate it in the context of, mourning another guy's lower usage, but rather in the context of understanding who these two players are, which was entirely my argument last year anyways. To the bigger point of Scottie has been promoted unfairly over Pascal in the offense, right? This is kind of, I think this is like my take in reverse of what I said was happening with Fred last year. Fred's being promoted to being a point guard. I don't think he's that good at creating shots. And people were like, look at the box plus minus. They always pointed to the stats, right? They always pointed to the advanced analytics that showed that Fred was a better player than Scottie, that he was a better shooter than Scottie, that the offense couldn't work with a shooter this poor at the top, that the offense would never respect a Scottie pick and roll because he can't dribble, can't shoot, etc. I'm just feeling like maybe I'm stupid. So now I'm left to ask myself, I wonder what the numbers say now, right? I mean, last year, the numbers were used to explain why the offense was being run through Pascal and Fred, because they were better than Scottie, right? The numbers, box plus minus, value over replacement, win shares per 48, PER, true shooting percentage. You can't run an offense through a guy who's shooting 52% true shooting, Rob. Don't look at, by the way, trigger warning, don't look at Pascal Siakam's true shooting percentage this year. So I did a little bit of digging, and I wanted to know, because the media loves numbers. They're very quick to tell you that Pascal Siakam's a two-time All-NBA, two-time All-Star, 2. And the number 2 got me thinking about a player who's 22. So I started to dig. And so I found the best season of Pascal Siakam's career, where he was decorated as third-team All-NBA, or was he second-team All-NBA? Can't remember. Sorry. I apologize. I should be better than that. But this was a season that, between the two All-NBA seasons, this one seemed to me analytically better. And this was 21-22. And this is when he was 27 years old. And if you believe people when they tell you that quick twitch athletes tend to peak between 22 and 27, 23 and 27, maybe a little bit later if they pick the basketball late. But this seems to be around the athletic peak, and then it starts to dip off a little bit. Then you can probably buy that year 27. When you look back long time from now, maybe we'll look at this as either the start or the absolute peak of Pascal Siakam's prime. Okay. I think I can make an argument that it's 24 to 28 is his prime. And right now he's just exiting it. But some people are very, very steadfast to tell you, no, he picked up basketball late. So his prime will be 25 to 32 or something. He's a very hard worker. Prove me wrong, Pascal. If you morph into a lights out shooter from 3 and above the break and continue to morph your shot diet more out, I have no doubt that he could be really, really good at the age of 31. Really good. And I would hope that he would do something like that for this offense. So I decided to do a little bit of a cross comparison between, this All-NBA player 2 years ago, by the way. He hasn't quite matched that since. He was a little bit worse last year, if not dead even. But his team was worse, and he's considerably worse this year. But I wanted to compare what Scottie's doing this year at the age of 22 in his third year to what Siakam did at the age of 27 in his sixth year as a pro, surrounded by very good teammates, in my opinion. And I wanted to see the relative difference between these two players, right? I wanted to see who is this player that we're propping up over this All-NBA superstar, star, MVP type, that we're remembering. So these are the numbers. These are the numbers for Scottie Barnes this year and Pascal Siakam. I gave you the advanced stats, and I gave you the per 75 possessions. Here are the things that Pascal Siakam is marginally better at. Steals percentage. 1.6% versus 1.2% is not a really big difference, but it is a difference, and it is in Pascal's favor. Okay. Free throw attempts. That is also a significant difference so far. Scottie has been really poor getting to the line thus far this season. He's been settling for a lot of jumpers. Thankfully for him, he's making them, but I would like to see that the free throw attempts go up. Some people could say it's a spacing thing. He's not really playing with a stretch 5. Siakam was playing a lot of minutes with Precious playing at 5, Boucher playing at the 5, Scottie playing at the 5. So maybe the offense was a little bit more spaced out. But hey, Scottie jump shooter, his analytics are technically better. Now, here are the things that Siakam was marginally better at. I can't say that having a 0.2% usage is better. It's technically whatever. It's an almost insignificant difference. Having a higher usage, of course, tends to lead to more things for your box score. So, technically you can say splitting hairs on that one. Turnover percentage. So Samson has been very quick several times to point out that things have been sloppy. Barnes has been very turnover prone. Correct. 16% versus 11% is a gap. It is a significant gap. And I will concede that point that there have been a lot more turnovers with Scottie than with Pascal. Points per game. This is a marginal gap too. I think I've already addressed this. Steals, also marginal gap. Here are the things that Scottie does, in my opinion, significantly better, which is everything he does better is significantly better. Just to be clear, everything. Win shares per 48. That is a big gap. Box plus minus. He's twice as impactful per 100 possessions on the box score, defensively and offensively. I didn't include defensive analytics here, but his defensive analytics are also better. PER, 22.2 versus 20.3 is a significant difference, in my opinion. It's significant enough for me to call it significant. 14.2% total rebound percentage is a significant gap between 12 to 12.2. So he's a better rebounder. 28.3% assist percentage is higher. 4.8% block percentage is a significant, massive, and I don't think sustainable uptick on Siakam's 1.6. Okay, per 75 possessions, he's averaging almost as many points, right? He's averaging more rebounds, more assists, more blocks, more threes. Now, this is the thing that no one saw coming. Siakam had already ascended to a half-decent shooter at that point. So how the hell is Scottie attempting 1.5 more threes per 75 possessions and making them at a 5% clip? People don't realize what it takes to go from a 34% three-point shooter, which is 2% below league average, 34.4, which is like a 1.5%, to a 39.3%, which is significantly above league average. Like, this is a gap. This is a big gap, okay? Scottie, the guy who couldn't hit free throws in Florida State, couldn't, whatever, he's shooting 60-something%. He's raised himself so far to an 83.3% free throw shooter. Granted, he hasn't been there a lot, but worth noting. He's shooting better from two. He's shooting better from the mid-range. 52.6%. He's shooting better at the rim. I mean, my God, he's taking more threes and he has higher field goal percentage. Does that tell you everything you need to know? You're very lucky I didn't include the true shooting percentage on this one because that's a pretty big gap too. The data that you used to elevate Fred VanVleet over Scottie and Pascal over Scottie, the same data sets are now telling you that Scottie is the better player. But that's not what you want to see, and that's not what you want to hear. So what if I just showed you the tape on what happens when certain guys drive? So these are possessions that have not been taken at random, but they are proving slightly different things. And I just want to take a moment, and I see 262 comments. If there are super chats or whatever, I will respond to them. I apologize. I'm not being very considerate of the chat, but let me take a moment now to just browse through and see what you guys are saying. I'm probably sure I'm not sure, but I'm assuming there's quite a few comments telling me to F off, and that's cool too, right? We need a Norman Powell player. Wow. Yeah. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Just reading through these comments. I like DeRozan and his BFF Lowry years. That is the past now. That's all I'll say. I miss those two sometimes, just for the vibes. Wembanyama one-on-one with Scottie tomorrow. Really love what Kevin Durant said about Victor Wembanyama. It really shows you what kind of a person he is. A really good person. Give Malachi the keys to the car. Okay. I mean, gosh. Okay, so I'm just going to hope that y'all are just having a conversation with yourself at this point. Let me go to the tape. Okay, there's no audio on this one, but this is a very interesting possession where a lot of people make mistakes, and I want to point it out because I think that this is me being as fair as humanly possible when I'm doing tape analysis. So Scottie cuts into the paint, which brings Korkmaz into it. They switch. So Joel Embiid is sort of tagging him, Tobias Harris, and then so you have on one hand you have Pascal Siakam trying to initiate a drive from the top. Now consider how much time it takes here to just dribble. Does this look like 0.5 offense to you? Gary Trent, when he's just dribbling, doesn't see it. Pascal Siakam is kind of clapping for the basketball at the top. He wants to isolate. He sees a favorable matchup here against Tyrese Maxey. He wants to attack it, right? Problem is there's no real space to attack because the paint is completely clogged. So before he is going to do this, he needs to do the smart thing, which is he needs to realize that if the paint is clogged, driving, especially against Joel Embiid, is going to be really hard. So he needs to call for the paint to be cleared, at least for Scottie to flare out. Now, I think that this is what Jakob Poeltl was talking about, right? Where he said there's a lot of people just doing random things. And the truth is, this is just not good basketball. So if you're a Scottie critic or Pascal stan, you're going to say, what is Scottie doing here? He's just standing in the paint, right? Well, I mean, if you're a Gary Trent hater who thinks Gary Trent has a very low IQ, you're like, why does Gary Trent take so long to make this pass to Pascal? The defense is allowed to sort of sag middle a little bit more to sort of prepare for that drive. There's a lot of people that could be technically blamed for this. I think the only person who's blameless is Dennis Schroeder, who's in the right place. You could make a case that one of Scottie or Jakob should probably come up and maybe set a screen behind Maxey to kind of clip him out of the play. And then that would at least elevate one defender up. And if they drop, then you take a pull-up. And if they meet you at the level, then you're going one-on-one at the basket, right? This is just intelligent basketball, right? That's not what the Raptors decide to do. This is a complete, travesty of offense. So now, I mean, please understand, Pascal Siakam catches the ball. I just want you to know the seconds that tick by here, right? It's going in slow motion, so it feels a lot longer than it is. But really, Gary Trent Jr. has been dribbling since 13 seconds on the clock. So it goes down 11, 10. He passes at 9, okay? So now Siakam gets it at 9 seconds. 8 seconds, he attacks. Okay, great. So he attacks right away. Problem is, where is he attacking to? And because Maxey knows that help is on his left, right? Or on his right, he can force Siakam left. Someone has to realize that this is just not effective offense. Nobody's at fault here. It's just all janky and disjointed. It's not Siakam's fault. What's he going to do? Probably do something else. But people with the basketball have a disproportionate responsibility to adjust because you are in the driver's seat. When you have a basketball and you notice that the other guys are not doing what they're supposed to do, you can always call for them to do something else, right? Assuming. Or you can adjust your behavior to the other 4 players. This is what Scottie does all the time. He sees that there's a driving lane and Precious Achiuwa cuts into the paint, takes away the driving lane. He's going to pass the ball because the driving lane has disappeared. He can't telepathically communicate to Precious Achiuwa, don't do that. He's just going to have to adjust that his teammate did the wrong thing. And he's going to have to, once again, recalculate what is the right thing to do based on the new variable, which is Precious Achiuwa cutting into the paint, demanding a post up for some fucking reason, and cutting off my driving angle. I'm going to have to either pull up and shoot if the defender is giving me space, or I'm going to have to find a teammate, or I drive into a congested double team and do this. Now, this is Pascal Siakam just not reading the play. And this is a bad offense. This is bad offense on his part. This is bad offense on the Raptors' part. And I guarantee you that nobody designed this play. I guarantee you this is not what they're running in practice. This is not part of their offensive principles. So if guys refuse to execute, it's very difficult for me to vilify the coach. That is low-hanging fruit. He's a new guy. He's a foreign guy. He has these crazy concepts about European basketball. It's not working. It's early. Let's pile on him. This is stupid. There's a lot of people who've told me, like, Rob, what are your feelings about 0.5 offense? Like, don't make me go into that again. So Siakam continues to drive. Now, at this point, where are you going? Right? You've already picked up your dribble, right? You're going right into help. So you've decided instead of going away from the help, you're going into the help. What's the plan? What's the strategy here? A floater? A rip through? A layup? You're not close enough for a layup, but you've picked up your dribble already. So what do? What are you going to do? You get stripped. You get stripped by Tyrese Maxey, who's not a good defender, because you bring the ball low and you don't know what you're doing. But like the truth is, like, who is at fault? Who am I to blame here for this offense looking the way it is? And please understand that when they tell you that, oh, you got to run the offense through Siakam, well, you're trying here. It's just not working. And you can say it's because there's congested space there. But what does Scottie do in this exact position? Invert the position. Let's say Scottie's at the top and Siakam is exactly where Scottie is and nothing else changes. What's changing? Either Scottie's taken the shot, probably Scottie's not nearly as high up, or Scottie's doing a dribble handoff with Gary Trent, right? And then he's setting a screen for Gary Trent and probably flaring to the corner, or Scottie's quickly moving this to Dennis and setting a screen on Dennis's man so that Dennis can come off the screen and go downhill. I mean, in every single clip, right? If you make the wrong decision in a motion offense, the whole offense craters. But it's not fair to disproportionately blame the offense when one guy is doing the wrong thing, especially when all four guys are doing the wrong thing. But then the question becomes, what is a person to do if another person is just on a different page, right? So what could be the play here? What could Siakam do, right? Let's just watch it again. So he decides to initiate. Even if you are his most ardent supporter, even if you are his biggest fan, find me his option to create a great shot out of where he is right now. Maxey has closed off. He's playing him to go one way. He's going exactly the way he's being forced. He doesn't step back, do some dynamic thing. That's Tyrese Maxey. He's 6'2". He weighs 180 pounds. You could have taken him to the post and drawn a double team and kicked out. But you're not doing that. You're trying to beat him off the dribble. And he's not a great defender. Please understand this. Look at his defensive analytics. Watch him play defense last year. He's trying. I mean, congrats to Tyrese. You know, he's got all the physical skills. But he has not historically been a great defender. For Tyrese Maxey, one-on-one, by the way, to be able to close off your driving angle like this, and you don't have a counter to this, this is the problem. This is why coaches that I spoke to this summer were very critical of running an offense through Pascal Siakam. And this is what's emboldened me, man, because I don't think that I'm wrong. I don't think that I'm wrong because people outside of this media space are seeing it too. Whether I'm talking to trainers, if I'm talking to a player, and y'all can say I'm capping, I don't know anybody, that's fine. I don't need to prove anything. I'm just saying that these conversations this summer, just offhand conversations about Siakam to going to other teams and hearing what they say about him have emboldened me that, hey, Rob, don't allow this media space to gaslight you. You're seeing this guy absolutely for what he is. And these people are not. And I refuse to believe that professional scouts and coaches and everybody is just wrong. And, you know, Josh Lewenberg, Michael Grange, and Samson Folk are right. I don't think this is good offense. But I also will tell you that I don't think this is a good offensive system. So it's not really this offense is failing Siakam. Do you remember last year, you know, when Siakam would put up like 28 points or some shit like that, and his teammates would struggle, and he was struggling to create looks for them that were clean. And then what were the tweets? Oh, his teammates need to pick up the slack. We need to get help for him, etc. Right? And this always tends to be the case, right? We did this with Chris Bosh too. We need to get him some help, man. He's an all-star, superstar, all-NBA guy who's rotting in the North. And then what does he do? He achieves the greatest stretch of his career by going down and being third fiddle in Miami, because that's what he was. He was being masqueraded as a superstar because that's what sells tickets. It's the same thing. It's the same thing all over again. Same people running the same narratives. Now, this is exactly what Chris Bosh would have done, by the way. With a different package, this is exactly how Chris Bosh saw the game. He didn't see the game. He would stop, he would survey, he would go into a double team and get smacked by Mikey Moore. But that's not how superstars read the game. That's not how Kawhi would have reacted to a Tyrese Maxey at the top. That's not how a LeBron would have done it. That's not how Jokic would have done it. That's not how these people read the game. So at some point, you're going to say the tracking data tells you that he's double teamed right now. I say the tracking data says that Gary Trent Jr. is open. Who's right? Right? Who's right? Am I wrong? Are you telling me even if he got the shot off, let's pretend that he got the shot off. Let's pretend that Tyrese Maxey doesn't strip him. Is this a good offensive possession for the Raptors? No. Is this a good decision by Pascal Siakam? No. Let us continue. Let us not beat a dead horse on this, right? And then they go the other way. It's a live ball turnover. It's transition. Okay. I think this was an example of the offense working correctly. Okay, great. Jakob sets a screen. Pascal Siakam comes off of it, going downhill. Barnes spaces out to the corner correctly. Dennis Schroeder stays at the top to allow for some spacing. So right now, he could technically pass back to Dennis. He could try to collapse the paint a little bit, then pitch back out to Dennis. He could maybe, I don't know, deceive the defense by going the other way. And then hopefully if Barnes reads the play correctly, maybe go back door, catch Joel Embiid sleeping. Really, this is just a game of manipulation, right? When you think about an NBA defense, what are they geared to do in transition and even in the half court? They're geared to protect the paint. They're all geared to protect the paint. You watch bigs in transition, you watch any wing in transition, what happens? You go down the court, even if it's a guard, right? You go down the court, the first thing you do, you get a foot in the paint, right? Then, if you're lucky, if your bigs get up the court, then you scram switch out. And if you're in a disfavorable matchup or whatever, then what is scram switching? So as the big is coming in to tag you, you are finding a shooter to rotate out to. So it's you come in and then you flare out. This is how defenses just have always really worked. So right now, the goal of a great offensive player is to suck in the defense and then to pitch out to the right player at the right time, okay? However, if you pitch out to the wrong player at the wrong time, your offense breaks down. Now, I find that when teams run their offense through players who are not very capable of running an offense, that while they may draw a double team, while a Julius Randle may draw a double team, while a Pascal Siakam may draw a double team, while a Lamar Odom in LA, may draw a double team, while, I don't know, a Ron Mercer may draw a double team, that often when double teamed, they panic and then they throw the ball and then they lose the advantage. See, because once you've drawn a double team, every great player would tell you, you've already actually won. That's the greatest thing ever. Because if you've drawn a double team and your offense is properly spaced out and you don't have two guys literally standing next to each other like we saw in the last play, somebody is wide open. And if they are open enough for you to pass to, then they can also attract a double team, right? Because they're open. And unless the defense reads and reacts to that breakdown completely correctly, then chances are they can also find an advantage out of that. And so what you'll notice is that great offenses like the Golden State Warriors or even the Toronto Raptors in 2018, 2019, they put the defense in rotation and they make them make 3, 4, 5 decisions. Okay? 3, 4, 5 decisions. And every time there is a miss on the defensive team's part, and most defenses are not geared to make 5 correct decisions in a row, they find and they thread the advantage. This is how 0.5 offense, motion offense, or really any competent NBA offense that's top 5 has ever worked. I don't care if you're talking triangle, Princeton, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Basketball always comes down to this simple advantage generation game. Okay? When you have a superstar, you have already an advantage walking into the gym because you have a player that they can't technically stop one-on-one. Pascal Siakam and Jakob Poeltl can be stopped one-on-one, I believe. If you have the right personnel for it, they can be stopped one-on-one. OG Anunoby, if you have the right personnel for it, can be stopped one-on-one. Dennis Schroeder, if you have the right personnel for it, can be stopped one-on-one. You can actually see how often you'll have a second defender help over because obviously, even though they can be technically, I don't want to say stopped, but they can be contained one-on-one. It's not like if you guard Dennis Schroeder straight up and your coaching strategy is, I'm never, ever, ever helping this guy. I'm never helping off of this guy. I don't care. I will live with the results of Dennis Schroeder going one-on-one against a really good point of attack defender. I guarantee you Dennis Schroeder is not going to put up 60 and bury you the way Kobe did when Sam Mitchell tried to do that to him. That's not the way it works, okay? But if you try to do that shit with Carmelo Anthony, yeah, he will absolutely kill you. You need to send soft doubles. You need to send late contests. Another thing worth noting, do shooters who are non-shooters, who are suddenly taking shots, do they actually space the offense? Well, the more shots they take, the more space they offer. I'll say that much. Because once a guy has hit a couple of threes, like Scottie has, suddenly he is actually getting contested. When the scouting report says that this guy's shooting 40% on the season, and he's shooting them at like a decent volume, he's shooting 6 per 100 possessions, that's enough as a defense that you're at least going to try. You're not leaving him wide open like you were last year, where he was really struggling. And you'll notice that the defense adjusted on him because Nick Nurse knows Scottie Barnes. He knows. And when Scottie rolled his ankle and he missed a couple of threes, you'll notice there was a shot late, very late in the game, where the ball found Scottie and there was not a defender in sight, and he had a wide open three and he passed it up and it was a turnover. I will bet any amount of money that they watched him miss, realized that there was a correlation between him missing his jumpers and his ankle bothering him. I saw some very bad defense from Scottie Barnes in the last game. Just not engaged the way he was the previous game. I can call it what it is. I believe that ankle really did bother him. That's my belief. I'm not confirmed. I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying. Once Nick Nurse figured out that his shooting ability is tied to health, like once you figure this out as a coach and you've coached this player for 2 years, so you've obviously seen him when he has tendonitis, how he shoots versus when he doesn't have tendonitis, how he shot in the Sixers series, after he came back with the ankle and he kept grimacing, his shot was gone. It's just gone. Okay. So once you realize this as a defensive coach, you start leaving him open. So they left him open, right? But they weren't leaving him open at the beginning of the game. They started leaving him open when he started missing. So the only way to counter this lack of space is to continue taking the right shots. And eventually, if they fall, you'll get some space back. If they don't fall, but they're never going to chase you off the line. Dennis Schroeder would have to shoot 40% for like 45 games for teams to really respect him the way that they respected Fred VanVleet. And ironically, Fred VanVleet can shoot 32%, 33% for an entire season, and teams will still respect him a little bit more than they'll respect Scottie Barnes or Pascal Siakam. Scouting reports adjust very slowly. I don't know why that is, but they do. They don't adjust very well to slumps. And of course, you can always make the argument that he's shooting 32, 33% from three, particularly because teams are putting, early contests and, very, very tight coverage on him at the 3-point line. And therefore, if you leave him open a little bit and dare him to shoot, he could get it going. You never want to give a shooter rhythm, which is why I was screaming about Kelly Oubre wide open. Anyways, let's go back to the tape. Enough waxing poetic. Tom Izzo saying, Tom Izzo, whew. I don't think you're that Tom Izzo. But you said Daryl Morey is a genius? Okay. I mean, genius comes in different quantities, but sure. Cool. I'm not a fan of Daryl Morey. I appreciate some of the stuff he's done, though, for sure. Okay, let's look at this offense. Okay. So Siakam comes off here. Jakob sets a screen. First of all, this is just, I think, in terms of spacing, Scottie needs to be further out, right? Probably, to allow a little bit more space for Jakob, right? Because right now, technically, you're not really at an advantage. You're going 2-on-2, right? Okay. Siakam picks up his dribble, and then he pitches it out to Dennis Schroeder. Is this an advantage generating basket? Sure. Great. Dennis Schroeder, he's gonna attack, and he's gonna get a paint touch because he read Darko's scouting report or game plan. Now, yes, technically, Jakob Poeltl is right there, but Joel Embiid will absolutely swipe this pass, so he has to make a different read. And Dennis Schroeder does something that they tell you not to do, which is gets into the air sort of manipulates Joel Embiid. Now, he could technically try and maybe attempt to kind of do a little shovel pass here to Jakob Poeltl, but that's very dangerous. So he makes a higher IQ play, which is he throws it out to Scottie. Now, this is what I mean. The concept of spacing is simple. I will tell you right now that if that was Yuta Watanabe or Klay Thompson, Kelly Oubre is not reacting any differently than he just reacted to Scottie Barnes, because Scottie Barnes had already hit 2 in the game. So now he runs Scottie off the line. Please understand how freaking amazing that is, that defenses are adjusting to Scottie this early. Scottie gets past him. Dennis Schroeder is technically out of bounds right now, which is, sometimes effective. And Scottie does something very smart, which if you're not paying attention, you probably missed it. Watch this. Look how he gaps around the help defender. He manipulates the defense ever so subtly. For a guy who can't dribble and has no skill, he did something kind of smart. He faked left and went right. Just watch it. Watch the whole thing in. Boom. I'm sorry it's so choppy. It's a frame rate issue. So basically, to sort of go freeze frame by freeze frame, goes. You see how he kind of cuts off his defender, number 9, which is Kelly Oubre? He takes him out of the play so he can't recover. Now, if he was kind of dumb, he might just go straight baseline. He might just say, okay, I'm taking off. But then he would leave Kelly Oubre in the play to contest from behind, knowing that Kelly Oubre is here, knowing that Joel Embiid is there, knowing that he'll probably, if he gets stuck, have 2 options out of this, which is Siakam at the top and hopefully Dennis Schroeder relocating to the corner, and maybe OG at the opposite corner if Maxey collapses as well. Scottie knows all of this before he catches the basketball, because this is what really good IQ looks like. And I guarantee you, if you watch the same play from Siakam, it's different. They're different players. They see the game very differently. I'm not trying to throw shade on one or the other, but I promise you this is some advanced level thinking when it comes to being a scorer. So he cuts him off. Just think about it. Cuts him off, takes him out of the play, goes around the help. So he takes a wide right around the help, shields off with his shoulder, which will allow for the brief window of opening he needs, and has the presence of mind to try and release this shot before Joel Embiid can recover and help and offer a shot block. He still technically left his options open if he chose to. And Dennis Schroeder is doing the right thing. OG Anunoby is technically doing the right thing. Jakob Poeltl is just there. He can't leave, because if he leaves, the defense just leaves him and he can't score from anywhere. So this is when we say, oh, the spacing is bad. But is Scottie not technically double teamed right now? I mean, if you really, really want to get nitty gritty about it, isn't he? Kind of is, right? But he gets it over. He scores. I hope that this tape is a little bit better than that. Sorry, just for anyone out there, he did score that basket. He just put a little hook shot over. Okay. So this is 2021 Philadelphia 76ers. Malachi passes off to Pascal. Jakob sets a screen. Boom, boom, boom. And what's the right pass here? Anyone know? What's the right pass? The right pass probably is over to Jakob, since Embiid has overcommitted and the backline defense is Patrick Beverley, who's not stopping regardless of his trash talk. He's not stopping. I mean, if you're Pascal Siakam, you have done your job here. You've gotten the defense to miscommunicate. And in this 1 second, you have technically created 2 windows of opportunity for your offense. Now, you'll see that Korkmaz is staying home on Grady. He's not leaving him. So Grady is not an option. Malachi, Patrick Beverley has completely collapsed the middle and he's got his feet in the paint. So if you whip this to Malachi, Malachi has an open shot, but you don't want to do that. Let's see what he does. He takes a second to gather. In the second that he takes to gather, look at what Patrick Beverley does. He responds exactly because he projects the pass. Please tell me you see this. Chat, can you just say W if you see where this is going? Now, how much worse of a position is Malachi in now than he was in maybe half a second ago? Now, he throws the pass. And what kind of advantage does Malachi have now? Thank you. All the W's. Okay. So this is who you want to run an offense through. A not very dynamic passer who often does exactly shit like this. He'll throw it off target. He'll throw it to the wrong guy. He'll project the pass. He'll do all sorts of things. But I guarantee you, if that was Scottie, it's a different pass at a different time. And that is exactly where the advantage comes. Now, where your offense really sags is when two people make the wrong decision back to back. Now, I don't know if this is a positive play or negative play. I can't remember, but let's see what happens. Malachi attacks the closeout. But that's Patrick Beverley. You have to know who you're attacking, and you don't have enough space. Now, here's a question. If you threw this pass, when, like right here, how much harder would it be for Patrick Beverley to recover? Instead, you take the extra dribble, you look at Malachi, and now it's a much more, let's call it, and you sort of like lob the pass. You don't just like, you don't bullet it, right? You lob it, which allows the defense even an extra millisecond, 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, I don't know, to catch up. And now Malachi is forced to do one of two things. Either shoot with a defender right under him or try to blow by one of the best defenders in the NBA, point of attack defenders, who granted is getting up there a little bit in age, but thank God. Derek, bald head white. Yes, this is the Siakam shit people don't see. Thank you. This is why we do the tape breakdown. It's to show the gaps. Because I tell you, this summer when I talked about this small stuff with people who know basketball more than I do, they all were like, absolutely, this is the fucking thing that everyone is seeing, that your Toronto media space refuses to see because they are too busy saying that he's doubled on 84% of his drives. They think that right now he did his job. They say he attracted the double, he did his job. I'm saying that if you are a player who dribbles the ball as much as he typically has for the last 4 years, that you have to do a much better job of creating easy offense for your team than he's doing right now. Okay, let's see what happens with Malachi Flynn going up against Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley, just textbook defense. I can't stand the guy sometimes, but he's a really good player at times too. So now Malachi does the second stupid thing. Please understand, I'm trying to be very not mean about Malachi. But this is not an advantage generation a pass. You don't bring your defender to the guy that you want to pass to. You go the other way. You attack right, you attack middle, and then you pass to Gary Trent. You don't go left, drive into the help, which is exactly like he must be studying Pascal Siakam tape, right? Because this is the wrong way to play basketball. And he doesn't even see that Pascal Siakam's open and that no one cares right now. So maybe one thing would be to fake a pass to Gary and then bullet it back to Siakam. Now you've created some sort of advantage. But that's not what he's going to do. He just passes it to Gary. And there's nothing really done here to generate any advantage. And guess what? You allowed them to fucking switch their better defender onto the guy with the ball. So you can't even do that. You can't even prevent that from happening. So this is everything. You've given them everything. Right? So now Gary's going to dribble the basketball. Oh, wow. We have 3 bad decisions in a row. because Gary could have potentially. Now let's see all the options that Gary had on the catch. What could he have done given what Malachi gave him? So bonehead decision number 1, bonehead decision number 2. Let's see what bonehead decision number 3. Now, if this was Scottie, again, I'm just always using Scottie as the barometer because I think he's one of the smartest players on the team. And he catches this, what's happening? It's a touch pass to Pascal, right? It's how many times have we seen Scottie in transition? He catches, boom, click, boom, push, right? Why? Why? You think he's trying to showboat? He's not showboating. He's trying to give the offensive player that he's passing to an advantage. Instead of constantly throwing passes off target, constantly sending passes late, and you're fucking over your teammates. So Masai Ujiri, you said there will be no selfish basketball. Holding the basketball like this is selfish basketball. It's not that the person is selfish. It is that the play style is selfish because you're giving yourself options whilst constricting options away from your team. You understand what I'm saying? Pat Bev did his job. Why is Gary so high up? He's saying. Okay. Now Gary's going to dribble a little bit, and this will allow Joel Embiid to space out and Tobias Harris to tag. And Korkmaz has not even touched on Grady. So obviously here, your hope would be the following. Like if you could run a play call right now, what would be the play? I think the play would be for Gary to bring the ball towards Pascal, right? This is just me trying to be a coach. I'm not a coach. One day I will probably, I don't know, coach my son's team or something, but I'm not a coach. But here's what I would do in this situation. If I could call a play and put it into all players' minds, this is what I think effective offense would be. I would have Gary bring the ball, either drive it, which is probably not going to happen because Patrick Beverley is too good to drive on here and probably would strip you. Just kind of bring the basketball over to Pascal. Then I would have Jakob set a screen and maybe, let's say, Malachi set a back screen on Maxi, like right there, and have Tobias clipped out, like so like in the scram, like basically Jakob would set a screen on Korkmaz as like he would set a screen like right where he is, and Grady would just run. He would run Korkmaz off of it. So it's not like Jakob goes up to Korkmaz and then sets the screen. That projects it. No, Jakob just holds his ground right here. He and Grady communicate. Grady comes around to the opposite corner. Okay? And as that's happening, Gary is shifting the defense away from that corner by going towards Pascal. And then Gary reverses it and whips it to Grady in the corner and gets him a wide open look. Now, that's how this offense could work. Will this offense ever work like that? No, because you know how many people are needed to make that play work? 3. Technically 4. Technically 5. Because while that's happening, that 3-person, let's call it 3-man action. I don't know if that's 3-man action, but, you know, terms escape me. But while that's happening, Soran, Ibrahim, Gary can't pass the ball like that. Sure, then maybe he shouldn't be at the top of your offense deciding what to do with the basketball like this, right? Maybe he should be in Grady's position and Grady should be in his position. And that's how this offense needs to work. You need to stop putting playmakers, non-playmakers in playmaking advantage positions. Because if they can't make that pass, which is a simple ball reversal, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be handling the basketball this much. Anyways, so if Grady comes off the corner, you get a wide open look for one of your better shooters, a shooter who, you know, and also reading who you're putting into the switch, right? Neither Tobias nor Korkmaz are good defenders, okay? Not the analytics I've read. So you're not exactly putting Patrick Beverley and Joel Embiid into the switch. You're putting 2 of your worst defenders, and the likelihood that they would both get clipped on Jakob Poeltl just long enough for Grady to have a wide open shot if Gary sends it the right time. But the reason I said it requires 5 players is the following. Because in order for that to work, Malachi needs to kind of move up. He needs to adjust a little bit so he can get Maxey out of the play. Somehow get Maxey out of it so that Maxey can't recover into the corner and offer a contest because he's very long. The second thing that needs to happen for a player that's not technically involved in the play is Siakam. Siakam cannot disrupt this play by doing something like cutting into the middle or standing up top demanding the basketball. He has to really believe, he has to make it believable that he's about to go get the ball, right? This has to happen. So Siakam has to be shot ready. He has to be in a position to score. He has to be looking at Gary. They have to manipulate the defense into believing that Gary is running a dribble handoff with Pascal all the while Jakob is setting a screen on, and Grady is running his man through that screen, creating a miscommunication between Tobias and Korkmaz, and Malachi is subtly, gently distracting Maxey like a little cat with the yarn thing that I talked about yesterday by bringing him a little bit higher up. This is how your offense works on a string. This is exactly how the San Antonio Spurs did it. I assure you, if you go watch San Antonio's tape, if you break it down, 2006, 2007, I don't care, 2002, they've always played this way. And this is a beautiful game. This is the beautiful style of basketball. 5 guys helping each other. This is beautiful. Okay. All right. God, I am so okay, so let's just see what happens in this play. And by the way, I don't care if this results in a score. I'm just telling you, they've already missed opportunities here. So, oh my God, I don't even know if that actually is what happens. Oh, okay. So now Gary passes to Pascal. Pascal screens. I don't know. Is that a screen? He doesn't really screen. It's a go screen. And now, what's the advantage? What advantage have you generated with now ticking away 16 seconds of clock? That's the advantage you've generated. Gary Trent trying to pass over the outstretched arms of a 7-foot-tall Joel Embiid. I hope this is not as disastrously as it looks like it might be. He couldn't make it. Couldn't make the pass because Joel Embiid. This is why they tell you to keep your hands up, deflections, etc. Andre in the 6th saying, I hate when they don't maximize a high screen. Waste. What kind of screen was it? That's worth noting too, right? Now, I have been very critical of Pascal Siakam screens earlier, and I have not heard a peep about it from the media, so please answer the question. How much of an advantage is Pascal Siakam creating for Gary Trent by setting this sorry-ass screen? Is he holding? Is he really upright? Is he trying to... This roll is only as good as the screen you set. Please understand that. If you don't set the screen correctly, if you don't make the pass correctly, none of this works. It all works on a string. So please stop talking about 0.5 offense. This is a really bad screen. This is a late roll. And this is a terrible idea. You're putting their 2 best defenders. By the way, they're only 2 good defenders into rotation here. Why is this? And here's the kicker. The ball ends up in your worst passer's hands. Think about what I'm saying. If you had, chat, let me know. Who's the worst passer on this? Okay, chat, let's play a game. Who's the worst passer on the court right now for the Toronto Raptors? Be honest. Grady, Malachi, Pascal, or Jakob? Gary, easily. Thank you. Soran saying Gary easily. Okay, chat. Let me know the second question. Who's the 2 best defenders for the Philadelphia 76ers right now? It's not even close. It's Patrick Beverley and Joel Embiid. Okay? All right. Who's the worst screen setter on... Okay, that is maybe not correct because I don't know how Grady and Malachi set screens, but it couldn't be sorrier than that shit. So you have an offensive action, which after 14 seconds, 16 seconds of grinding the wheel, missing opportunities, not milking advantages, has decided that the golden ticket idea here that's going to unlock a beautiful possession and a beautiful attempt is to put your worst passer as a ball handler with one of your worst screeners who rolls to the basket as the two best defenders on the other team attempt to navigate a sorry ass screen. Yo, you can't. Do you think I'm a genius? No, I'm not a genius. I think a 6-year-old would know this is terrible offense. So now I am curious to know, who do you blame for this? Because Scottie's not on the court, so you can't blame him. I don't think Darko in his right mind designed this, so I don't think you can blame him either. So I think you have to kind of hold the players on the court accountable for deciding that this was a good idea. This is low IQ. This is really low IQ. And I promise you that if you reverse one thing, which is you put the ball in Grady's hands and you make Jakob the screener, none of this happens because Grady's a really good passer and Jakob's a really good screener. Stupid. Okay, so we lost the advantage. Now we've gotten the ball to one of our better passers and one of our better screeners and one of our more efficient scorers. Congratulations. Let's see what he does with it. I'm kind of hoping that his first idea here is to pass to Grady backdoor. I hope he does. Nope. He cuts it off. Korkmaz cuts it off. Grady fakes and doesn't cut through. Okay. So now Jakob decides, hey, this guy can't guard me, but he can. Siakam tries to get an offensive rebound. Doesn't work. If your possession is going to end with Jakob Poeltl taking a smaller defender off the drive for a kind of flip up shot at the rim, I think the other team is going to take it 10 times out of 10. If every offensive possession for the Raptors results in a contested, sort of floater for Jakob Poeltl off the back glass with a help defender coming back, I mean, how much help did Joel Embiid offer on that one? I think it was significant, right? Wasn't it? Let's see. Let me just evaluate this. Look at Joel Embiid immediately react. I've always been critical of Joel Embiid's basketball IQ, but he's been better this year, like really, really better. And his defensive IQ has always been better. But look at Joel Embiid trying to help Tobias Harris. Why? Because he knows that this is a mismatch, and he's going to do everything in his power to help and recover. And this is just enough help, and Tobias does just enough of a good job to force the miss. You need to put that into context too. Yak is shooting 70%. Yeah, he's shooting 70% because he's open a lot. He's not doing that contested. It's on putbacks. Like if your offense is predicated on Jakob taking his man off the dribble and putting up a contested 2 with Joel Embiid coming as a help side defender on the weak side, chasing the play and trying to block his shot from behind, I promise you that is actually playing in Philadelphia's favor, not yours. That's not efficient offense. We the North saying Jakob should have backed him in and waited for the help defender. It's hard. It's hard, I think, to back down a guy like Tobias Harris. He's not weak. Okay, let's see this. Is this going to be a rebound? Oh, man. This is the Gary Trent possession. Oh, my God. Okay, so this is Gary Trent dribbling down the court. I apologize. So what happened was my screen recording was on one frame rate and the play, the export is on another. So if I went 15 frames per second and it was like a recording in 88 frames per second, it basically dropped 5 out of 6 frames. You're seeing it so choppy, and I apologize. I should have taken the time to do this correctly. I apologize. I'm breaking down a terrible offense using a terrible video, but I hope that you can still see what I'm talking about. So here, Gary dribbles down the court. He picks up the dribble, which you should never do, but okay, fine. I guess there's enough ball pressure there. Let's see what he does with the basketball. Okay, he pitches out to Malachi Flynn. Is this advantage generation? I mean, it's not really. I'll tell you why. While I am very impressed that the Raptors managed to get the ball over the half-court line so quickly, it's because of the fact that it is Gary Trent Jr. dribbling up the sideline which is never really an advantageous position for a player to be dribbling up. I mean, unless you have a specific reason to be this close to the sideline is just acting as an extra defender and is actually just making your pass much harder. This is, again, low basketball IQ. A player like Scottie, have you ever, I mean, here's a challenge to you. Find me a play where Scottie sprints the ball up the court and he's tiptoeing the sideline. He's almost always closer to the center, but always off center. Not always, but mostly almost always he picks a side so that he can manipulate to the other side. It's just simple basketball, man. I feel like I wasn't a very good basketball player, but I swear I knew this in grade 7. I didn't know how to do it properly, but this is just basic. They teach it to you very early. Okay. So he passes to Malachi. Malachi is going to try to take Korkmaz off the dribble because he thinks, hey, there's Joel Embiid is outside the paint. I'm Malachi Flynn. I can take this, defensive sieve who's not a very good defender. But here's the problem. Look at where Gary is. Is Gary actually giving Korkmaz? See, because here's the thing. If you're Korkmaz right now, you know that this is not the greatest matchup for you. He's a small guard. He may not be a very good NBA player by NBA standards, but he's in a one-on-one situation. He's quick enough to drive by you. And if you're Korkmaz, and also if you're the other Sixers, you know that Joel Embiid right now is not back there to provide help. So technically, in this situation, Patrick Beverley would have to be the switch or the help, or you'd have D'Anthony Melton. I think that's Melton on Gary Trent Jr., who shut him down. He could collapse, and then you would have a lot of options, right? Now, Scottie's not really helping by being this high, but he's also doing his best, right? Because if Scottie was any lower, he would be bringing another defender into Malachi's space, and he would also not be giving Malachi a necessarily great passing angle, okay? So now Malachi's going to drive, and if he was De'Aaron Fox, he's already ahead of his defender, in which case Chris Boucher's open, probably Gary Trent's open, probably Scottie's open. But the first thing that Malachi has to do is get past Korkmaz, which he doesn't. So instead of getting past Korkmaz, he decides to pass out to Gary Trent Jr. And I apologize again, we're missing so here. He realizes that Patrick Beverley is going to become a help defender. I guess in this case, he panics. And Gary Trent is not spacing correctly here. If Gary Trent Jr. read the drive, his first reaction should have been to get away from the driving angle. But he doesn't get away from the driving angle. Instead, he actually brings a second defender into the driving angle so that Malachi has no option but to pass. To me, that is selfish basketball. That is doing something for yourself that will get you a touch that does not help your teammate. And I feel bad for Malachi in this situation because he wasn't dynamic enough or quick enough to get past Korkmaz, but he definitely wasn't dynamic enough to get past Korkmaz with help. That is the quality of the offense. That is an argument for spacing. Now, any basketball intellectuals out there who want to talk, call in tomorrow and talk about this play. Okay? This is purely on Gary to not space out in the corner. Right now, if Malachi makes that pass, number one, if Gary is in the corner, properly spaced out into the corner, allowing Malachi that space, number one, he probably has a better angle to attack Korkmaz without the help defender Melton coming over to help on Korkmaz, who they all acknowledge probably is a bad defender. I feel like I shouldn't be calling Korkmaz a bad defender automatically, but I feel like he is a bad defender. I don't have the analytics in front of me to know that he's a bad defender, but the very fact that Malachi attacked him the way that he did makes me think that the scouting report is that Korkmaz does not move his feet very well. Anyways, let's move on. This pass, which gets Gary no closer to scoring than he was 6 seconds ago, does not help. It's also a little bit out of control. As you can see, it's also outside of his shooting pocket. It's kind of lobbing over because he kind of panicked. Okay. So now Gary Trent Jr. is fully contested and he's offering baseline. He's offering baseline because the baseline is a defender, just like the sideline is a defender. Gary Trent Jr. has now got himself against a pretty good defender in the worst position possible as an offensive player, which is to be a guy who has really one option in this situation, which is to shoot because you're not quick enough or dynamic enough to drive. And he's basically offering you a driving angle because he knows he has help and he knows you're not quick enough to beat him fast enough before the help gets there. This is just really understanding. See, he forces the drive because he doesn't want him to shoot. He wants him to drive because he knows Patrick Beverley and Joel Embiid are going to be there to recover before Gary Trent makes it to the basket. This is a really good defensive team that has really read the scouting report on the players that they are playing, by the way, because a lot of teams would have probably tried to back off of Gary Trent just a little bit or maybe got too close to him. No, he didn't do either of those things. He made sure that he had Gary Trent drive. He forced him to drive in exactly the place where he knew he had help. This is just smart execution by a defense. Okay? And what does Gary do? So this is not your half-court offense failing. This is your players failing to read situations. Just as they failed to read situations last year. How many players are open right now? You can't even see them on the screen. They're so open. You have 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, 4 players that I can see, and you have 4 Sixers on you. You're telling me nobody's on you? Hang on, let me remove myself from the screen. You have Boucher right there, Malachi right there. Probably someone is facing on the corner. Like, where the hell is the 5th Raptor? My God, this is crazy. So my point is, that's terrible offense. Let's continue. Now here, Scottie Barnes bringing the ball up the court. Okay, that's Kelly Oubre. Now, is this proper spacing? I mean, the paint is technically open. There's Joel Embiid right there. So I wonder what Scottie's going to do here. Okay, he's going to attack. He's going to attack middle. And now he's going to morph it into a sort of post up. Okay, so he's kind of sucking in the defender. I wonder if he's going to make this pass to Jakob right now. I suspect he might. Oh, he does. Okay, good. Now Jakob gets Embiid to commit. Is he going to pass to OG? Yes. Now this is the problem. So everything was fine. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine because you had 2 of your better playmakers and decision makers in this play, right? So consider everything that's happened here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's Pascal Siakam. Now look at Pascal Siakam right now. Do you think that with Scottie initiating a post up at the nail, that right now is the perfect time to bring your man into his driving lane? This is the time to clear out Pascal Siakam. But no, Pascal is bringing his defender into the paint. Did you see that? Please tell me. Give me a W if you just saw that. Pascal Siakam is at the top, right over there. Jakob Poeltl is right there. Okay. You see this? Let me know what Pascal Siakam should do right now. Do you think that bringing a second defender, like he's like helping Joel Embiid right now? What are you doing? This is, in my opinion, very wrong. Okay? This is terrible. You can say, oh, I want the offensive thing. Maybe I'm misreading it. I'm not saying it's deliberate. But if Scottie right now sees Siakam do this, he needs to turn around, and this needs to be a fadeaway or one of those midi pull-ups or whatever that he pulled on him earlier. But like, he's going to do the best he can do with this spacing, but this spacing was a lot better before Siakam cut into Barnes' driving lane. Because right now, I'll tell you, you remove 2 players out of the equation, Siakam and Siakam's man. How much more open is Scottie right now? He can go left. He can go right. There's actually place to go, right? He can manipulate the defense a little bit. He can maybe bring Dennis off of a screen from Jakob, and then Dennis pops up at the top where he's shooting amazing. Or, you know, he can start to go the other way towards Maxey and then try to do a little bit of a pitch out to OG in the corner. Maybe OG can relocate to the top. Like, my God, there's a lot of different things you can do before Siakam brings his man into this play. Once Siakam brings his man into the play and you shut off the paint, basically, because you're allowing the paint to be cut off, Scottie no longer has a driving angle. If Scottie doesn't have a driving angle, he's not going to drive into 3 defenders. He's not Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. So what's he going to have to do? He's going to have to do something else, which makes the pass way more predictable. That's the problem. Okay. But now the compounding issue here is that whereas if Siakam doesn't bring this guy into the play, right now, Jakob and probably Scottie could do something, right? If Jakob goes and he draws Scottie's man, maybe Scottie could pop out, right? Or maybe Scottie could just be in the dunker spot and they could draw 2 defenders. Kelly Oubre is not a great defender by anyone's definition. So maybe if Jakob goes to the basket really, really strong, we saw this against Milwaukee, goes to the basket really, really strong and just does a little flip pass to Scottie. Scottie has an open dunk. But you bring Siakam and his man into this play, and it's just too congested. You just can't make the pass anymore. There's too many hands in there. So Scottie does the best he can. Joel Embiid cuts him off. I don't know what Siakam is doing. Waiting for an offensive rebound, maybe? His rebound rate would suggest, I don't know. Okay, so now gets the ball to OG. Defender closes out. OG's like, hey, this Tyrese Maxey, let me post him up. It's the right idea, right? But you need to take that shot probably. It's going to be a contested shot, but it's going to be a hell of a lot better than doing a post up over Joel Embiid helping. So now what is the fucking defense? What is the offensive player to do? What can Pascal do right now? Jakob's man is shading over. This is creating an impossible way to exploit the matchup against Tyrese Maxey. Can't isolate him because there's Joel Embiid. There's no real passing angle to Siakam because he hasn't created one. Now, Siakam is going to back off. Okay, that's great. But look how poor this offense is. Look how poorly spaced it is. Even right now, if Scottie, right, let's just say Jakob passes to Scottie right now and Scottie initiates some downhill attack. The very fact that Tobias Harris is hanging out in the paint is purely on Pascal Siakam. Purely. He brought him into the play. He's left him in the play. And because he's not correctly spacing out to the corner, Tobias can just keep a foot in the paint and just protect, right? Think about all the possibilities that happen if Siakam doesn't exist on this play. Let's just wipe out. Let's pretend we're playing 4-on-4. Everything becomes possible if Siakam and his man are not in this play. But the minute one guy refuses to space out for the other people, refuses to set screens, refuses to do anything, I promise you I did not pick these plays to pick on Pascal Siakam. But it's happening over and over, and I need you to address it honestly. If you understand basketball, you understand he's not doing the right things. But, please understand that in your article, you're going to say, but I asked Darko Rajakovic, and Rajakovic said Pascal is doing everything we want him to. Because you asked him a loaded question in order to get the answer that you wanted to print. Be honest. How many times have you asked Scottie Barnes a question about Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam, hoping he says something kind of negative so you can write your bullshit piece, right? That's how you guys work. I see it. I see the game. I read the game. Okay. I played the game. Never played it like you guys, though. I tried to play it honest. But this is corrupt. You are corrupt. Do you want me to say it? You're morally and ethically corrupt. Jakob passes to Schroeder. He attempts to screen on his man. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit heated. And now Schroeder is going to go up into Joel Embiid. Pascal Siakam's in the corner begging for the basketball. Tyrese Maxey is helping out. Scottie has correctly spaced to the top in order to allow Dennis Schroeder what I call an outlet or a release valve. Schroeder is not going to take it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he's going to actually shield himself away from Embiid. And somehow he gets this to drop. I think that if Nick Nurse could have the entire game be Gary Trent Jr. dunk attempts, Malachi Flynn driving, Gary Trent Jr. playmaking, Dennis Schroeder taking a layup over the extended arm of Joel Embiid, he would be a very happy person. Defense is never going to be 100% in the NBA, but you take calculated gambles and you have things that you want the offense to do, and then you have things you never want the offense to do. One-on-one, Scottie Barnes against Korkmaz in the post, hell no, you don't want that. One-on-one, Pascal Siakam trying to take Tyrese Maxey off the dribble with two defenders helping in the paint, absolutely you live with it. Understand that basketball coaches, really good basketball coaches, I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody, but really good basketball coaches, proper basketball coaches, understand these principles very clearly. This is not debatable. I'm breaking it down in the most simple way possible. I'm not using any advanced terms or plays. This is simple basketball. I'm making it as I'm trying to use as few terms that can possibly confuse anybody as possible. It's not because I'm talking down to anybody. It's because I genuinely think this is simple enough that I could explain this to a toddler. Hey, this is a good idea or a bad idea? It's that simple. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Does this generate an advantage or not generate an advantage? It's actually that simple. Continue on. I'll move faster. I'm at 2 hours and 5 minutes. This is getting long. No one's going to go through this. Okay. Chris Boucher, nice little point of attack defense. Siakam had a couple of inspiring moments of, high pickup points and really disruptive, trying to be disruptive in the passing lanes. I appreciated that. Okay. So he's trying to provide enough disruption, and who does he see? And now what do you have? You have a second defender, OG Anunoby and Chris Boucher attack Tyrese Maxey 40 feet from the basket with 11 seconds to go on the clock. This wasn't even late clock. Let me do something. No. This is 11 seconds to go on the clock. In the fourth quarter, they're applying some pressure, but they do it out of control because they're down by 14 and they just really want to force a turnover for some reason. And you are leaving Scottie Barnes to play against Paul Reed and Tobias Harris 1-on-2. Let's see how he does. Why does he darken the clips? Hard to watch. Sorry, man. It's to avoid copyright strikes. I don't want the video to get taken down. I don't want the channel to get copyright striked. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I try to brighten it up a little bit. I apologize. I vignette it so that it's easier to see, because when you have so many, I think like when people are watching basketball, right, they get distracted because the screen is very bright and there's a lot of things, there's the crowd, there's the coaches, etc. So typically when you're doing breakdowns, you try to highlight, point, you isolate, whatever. So this darkening, increased contrast hopefully allows people to be seen more like objects as opposed to people. I don't want people to look like people on these, because then your bias is like, oh, that's Pascal, oh, that's Scottie, etc. Okay. A lot of creators use highlights at regular brightness. Okay, I mean, I've gotten a copyright strike for one, not copyright strike, but I've gotten the NBA is very aggressive about this. The vignette maybe is too dark. Okay, I'll try to be better next time, guys. Sorry about that. Okay. So now Paul Reed is going to give it to Tobias Harris, Scottie Barnes, and kudos to Chris Boucher for recovering in time. Scottie Barnes keeping his arms up on Tobias Harris. Probably a little too forward for my taste, but okay. That's a tough shot for Harris, but he recovers, right? Boucher doesn't box out on Paul Reed. Paul Reed gets the offensive rebound. So it doesn't matter that you defend Tobias Harris, that you force the miss, because you can't close out the possession because Boucher doesn't rebound. Okay, this is the other game against the Sixers, and this one I'll just let play through. I'm honestly, I'm tired of talking at this point. So, okay, this is Tyrese Maxey. He's going to pass over to Joel Embiid. This is Scottie versus Embiid. I think you take this matchup if you're the Raptors. Like, I don't think Joel Embiid is going to kill you from there, but, it's hard. When a guy is allowed to just elbow you in the face, it's kind of hard. Let's just be honest. Okay, so this is Jakob. I try to predict what Jakob is going to do. I think he's going to pass to Dennis Schroeder here. Let's see what he does. Oh, he tries to pass to Dennis Schroeder. Bounces it off his head, but okay. So now they're going to try to reinitiate. Schroeder can't get an advantage, can't get past this man. They reset. They find Grady at the top. Defense loses Grady Dick, which is great. And honestly, this should result in a good shot. He closes out properly, and Grady properly attacks the closeout. He's bringing him into the paint. He should pass to Gary here. Let's see if he does. Grady is a basketball genius. Now, this is 0.5 offense working properly. And what did Coach Mo say? You can't have two dummies on the court. Guess what? You have two dummies on the court, and the ball just found one of them. And what's going to happen when the ball finds a dummy's hands is the entire offense is going to break down, and the dummy, in this case, Gary Trent Jr., which I'm not trying to be mean, but I just mean like as a basketball IQ guy, he's not the greatest. And he's made some really, really dumb decisions so far this season. And I feel bad for him that he's struggling in a contract year, but it does not mean that you get to disrupt the offense this way. Okay? Watch this play out. Look at Grady perfectly relocating to the corner. And look at Gary take a contested two. He doesn't see it. He doesn't see it. It's so simple. It's a pass you refuse to make. This pass, he refused to make it. And this was a high leverage moment, man. 84-95 game is slipping away. And this is the offense you come up with. A fadeaway moving off motion, two-pointer jump shot. The least efficient shot in basketball. They tell you not to take this shot, the long two, whatever. I think this is pretty close up there as one of the worst shots in basketball. Let me guess. It clanks. No surprise there. It clanks. This is the very first possession, and I wanted to include this play to show you that when somebody tells you that a guy is constantly double teamed on drives, there's two ways to interpret it. Number one, they're LeBron. They're great. They're amazing. Teams can't stop them. That's why they're throwing a double team. Okay? Interpretation number two, they're not very good players, and they consistently dribble into double teams because they don't see double teams, because they don't see the floor. This is why I told you to go break down the game tape of Tyrese Maxey and tell me how often the Raptors recovered in time to send a double team on his drives. No, because he was attacking as the defense shifted to not be able to provide a double team. Because I don't know, maybe it's just that really smart offensive players don't want to try and score over double teams. Has that ever occurred to anybody? I don't know. But no, he's double teamed on all his drives, so he's great. Look at how he gets a double team. Right now, single coverage, right? Now, I think the smart thing to do here would be to go away from Embiid or to pass, right? Again, easy to say, armchair coach sitting, with highlights going at 50% speed. I'm not saying I could have made this pass. I'm not saying, everyone can make this pass. I'm saying if you're a lead initiator of an offense, or if you're someone that, this media space thinks we should run an offense through, or you're an all NBA guy, then you should know that Joel Embiid is a really good shot blocker and that you should want to attack Tobias Harris with Maxey as his helper instead of Embiid. But you're not going to do that, actually. You're going to go right into Joel Embiid. Yep. Because that's the way Tobias Harris forced you to go. You understand that? Every defender has a preference to where he wants you to go, and every offensive player has a preference of where they want to go. The Raptors, in almost every situation, which involved Gary Trent or Pascal Siakam or Chris Boucher, not to pick on those three, Jalen McDaniels is part of it too, Precious Achiuwa, these five players do exactly what the defense wants them to do almost 99% of the time. Go watch it, study it yourself. I'm not trying to tell you the answers. I'm trying to give you the playbook. Okay. So technically, per analytics, he has managed to successfully drive into a triple team. Okay. Isn't that a good thing? It's a great thing to draw a triple team, but you haven't actually drawn a triple team. You've actually just dribbled into 3 defenders. And that's very different than collapsing the defense. You haven't collapsed shit because the defense hasn't moved. You just literally walked into the defense thinking, hey, maybe this will help. But here's the thing that doesn't help in all of it, right? He's going to pass to Scottie after bringing the defense over. Joe Tully. Usually when I see like 25 comments or 10 comments or 5 comments from someone in quick disruption, it's usually a chance to tell someone to please chill out. Okay, Joe Tully, I don't know if you're a troll. I don't know if you just disagree. That's cool. But if you want to disagree, you can disagree politely and we can talk about it. If you have a particular, question about something that I'm saying, if you think that I'm wrong, that's cool too. I'm open to being wrong. Please just tell me I'm wrong and tell me why I'm wrong here, and I'll reevaluate. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. No problem. There's some okay, I'm just gonna put this user in a timeout. It's just, sorry. Politely, LOL. I mean, are you a burner account? What are you doing? I mean, yeah, sure. We don't have a moderator right now, but cool. Anyways, also please don't do this stuff. Like, this is not helpful to anyone either. Anyways, okay, let's go. Okay, so he brings over the defender to Scottie and then tosses the ball out of control to Scottie. Like, so you're going to say that this is because the defense respects him? That this is a double team because they respect him? Or is this a double team because they see a player who's out of control dribbling into a crowd? I guarantee you I would get doubled too if I dribbled into a crowd, or I would get stripped. But I mean, it's because defenses wouldn't respect me to make the pass that would hurt them. There's a reason why they doubled Joel Embiid, but they don't double Jokic. That's not respect for Joel Embiid. That's disrespect for Joel Embiid because they don't trust him to make the pass. Jesus Christ. Okay. All right. Let's go on. Okay. And this is Tyrese Maxey. I did include a Tyrese Maxey offensive possession. This is OG Anunoby and Jakob Poeltl trying to communicate Tyrese Maxey. Okay, notice Joel Embiid's screen. That was a solid screen. Do you see how he's rewarded for it almost immediately? I think this is probably too wide, but consider if Joel Embiid doesn't do what he does here. I mean, it's weird. I don't like the 76ers, and I have to praise them on this play, but look at how Embiid sets the screen. Look at the angle of the screen and how he clips him, and look how wide he breaks away from it. Now, the only reason this works is 2 reasons. Number 1, because he's a really big human being who sets a solid screen. Number 2, because he's a threat to both dive to the basket and pop out. So he can actually manipulate the defense by going a little bit wider. And because he sets such a solid screen and he actually takes OG out of it. Look at OG. Like, I mean, God, people really don't appreciate how hard OG works. But look at how OG is getting taken out of this play. And Jakob has to help on Maxey because he's a deadly shooter. So once again, he's a threat to drive and shoot. OG is lost in the play. You can't allow him an open shot. So somebody, probably Dennis, no, I would say Pascal, needs to step up here. And then Gary needs to tag out to the corner shooter, which is Tobias. So this is like, you need to see this. If you're the back of the defense, you have a better vantage point than anyone who's at the front of the defense. That's why Draymond and guys like Dwight Howard and guys like, Anthony Davis, Bill Russell, whatever. I don't mean to put all those guys in the same conversation, but that's why they are sometimes your best communicators. And if you were a fan of the Raptors championship run, I'll tell you one player who really made a huge difference was Marc Gasol. Because right now, Marc Gasol is absolutely in the back line of this defense because they didn't put him up top as much. And they played a lot of drop with Mark. So he would be calling out the coverage right now. So right now, and I mean, honestly, that's what Scottie's doing for the back line of your defense in plays where he's on the court. But he's not on the court right now. So right now, Scottie would be probably if Scottie was Pascal, people like to draw that comparison. If Scottie was Pascal, he would read that this play is about to result in a Joel Embiid dunk. Okay. And what he would do is he would cut off Joel Embiid's passing lane, and he would communicate to Gary, right? He would communicate to Gary that he needs to go and tag Tobias Harris, and then they would leave OG to fill the gap, right? So OG would then have to recover. So Dennis would, for a moment, be splitting his attention between number 9 and the corner shooter, whoever that is. Sorry, I can't see who it is, but the two players there. But the preference here would be if you're going to sag middle and you're going to leave Tobias that open, then Gary has to be out to get him. And he can't be standing in no man's land either, because Joel Embiid can pass well enough to exploit it. Okay, so now to perfect pass. I've been so impressed with Tyrese Maxey's passings. And now you have a wide open paint and Joel Embiid attacking, and Pascal Siakam is not going to close the gap. He's not going to cut him off. He's not going to cut off the pass. He's not going to cut off the driving lane. Tell me right now, if you were on the court, are you telling me that you would surrender this and just trust that Jakob Poeltl is going to, by the way, the slower player than you, slower and out of position player who got clipped on a screen that wasn't probably communicated to him properly, and he is just so wide, right? Because Yak needed to communicate the screen to OG, but Joel Embiid set such a great screen that it actually just doesn't even matter. And Maxey and Embiid are two of the better players. Maxey being a really good passer, Joel Embiid being a good screener, roller, popper. And so this becomes really difficult to stop. And most defenses are not really primed to stop this. But OG Anunoby and Jakob Poeltl are two of your best defenders. So really, you've done an okay job right now because you've cut off, at the very least, you cut off Tyrese Maxey. But now you have to recover to Embiid. Because in a pick and roll that is actually a successful pick, for a moment, you're going to give an advantage to either the roller or the guy who's got the ball. Either you're going to go under and you're going to leave the shooter wide open, or you're going to overhelp on the roller and you're going to leave the shooter wide open, or you're going to overhelp on the shooter and you're going to leave the roller wide open and someone has to recover. Either way, in this case, I think I can say OG and Jakob did a commendable job. And as much as I would like to say I wish Jakob was a little bit more to the center, if he was, Maxey's going right to the basket. So he had to do what he did. I think they both did their job. That's my opinion. You're free to disagree with that. Okay. But right now, Pascal Siakam or Gary Trent, one of those two guys, probably Siakam because he's a little bit higher up and a little bit bigger as a defender, probably needs to help. And if you're going to give up anything on this play, it cannot be an Embiid dunk. It cannot be an Embiid dunk. It's going to get the crowd rolling. You're down by 5 on the road. Third quarter, you cannot surrender a dunk here. So if you cannot communicate fast enough with Gary Trent Jr. to go out to the corner of Tobias Harris and OG cannot get in the play, or that Jakob cannot, and I mean, honestly, if you just put a path of resistance in Embiid's way and he has to initiate some sort of post up, which is not a favorable matchup for you if you're the Raptors, right? If Embiid posts up Siakam, that's 2 points too. But at the very least, you have slowed his momentum. A post-up, hook shot, whatever over Siakam is going to be definitely more difficult than an open layup. And also, it enables help because it slows down the play. You need to slow down momentum on offense. It might even allow, if he's really just kind of like surveying, it might even allow Jakob to scram switch. And then that way, Siakam can close out to the corner on Beverly. And then everyone's kind of just back in their own place. Yeah, sure, it's not ideal matchups because ideally you would want OG on Tyrese. And in this case, you might end up with, I don't know, Dennis on Tyrese. But that's not that bad, right? It's not bad. Dennis was your primary defender on Tyrese for a lot of the plays anyways. Like, you're fine. You're good. The only thing you require here is for Siakam to make an effort to slow down and beat momentum. And by the way, if he does that and Gary doesn't do what he does, Gary doesn't do what he's supposed to, and you surrender an open 3 to Tobias Harris, that is still a preferable outcome to giving an open dunk. Okay? Just so I can be very clear on where I am defensively as a coach. Let's see what they do. Oh, All that shit talk for nothing. Embiid doesn't even do what I thought he was going to do. My bad. But watch where Siakam is on this whole play. Okay? So he has one guy. Siakam is guarding technically Tobias Harris, right? We can all agree on that. Number 12 right there, right? Embiid somehow, Jakob, through some Herculean thing, forces Embiid, or really it's Embiid forces himself. Embiid could have gone right to the basket. He made a mistake there. So this is great, right? And now OG is also recovering, which is actually pretty incredible. And he's digging down on him. Forces a travel, in my opinion. Now watch Tobias Harris cut backdoor. Now, if Embiid was a better passer, Siakam has technically lost his man. Is he offering help on Embiid? No. Is he in a good box out position? No. Is he even guarding his man? No. So what's he doing? Does he even recover? Does he notice? Does he care? I'm playing basketball. He lost his man for a good second and a half, man. I want to see how long he didn't care about Tobias Harris. Hang on one sec. So, I mean, Tobias is cutting backdoor for a reason because he sees that Pascal Siakam is sleepwalking out there. Okay, let's see. We're at, let me see. What does it say? Okay. So, 1 second. He lost him for a full second and a half. And he's given up inside position, which I hope does not result in a rebound. It resulted in a made basket. So, look, it's not always about what happens. It's about what could happen too. And in that case, you gave up backdoor to Tobias, and you gave up favorable rebounding position, and you didn't help, and you didn't close off the lane, which forced Jakob Poeltl to do what he did. I mean, and to the people saying out there that Yak is trash, yo, I was critical of that trade more than anyone because I wanted us to tank. But yo, please stop calling him trash. He's actually a pretty good basketball player. He's trying his best out there. He's boxing out. I want to see what this defense would look like without Jakob Poeltl, Scottie Barnes, and Dennis Schroeder and OG Anunoby right now. Like crazy. Seriously. Okay, let's see how they react. Look at Scottie. He sees that Grady is not going to be able to do anything with Embiid, so he closes over and tries to communicate to Grady to switch off. He doesn't see... You see Scottie pointing. I don't know if he's... Okay, you know what? I don't want to assume that Scottie's pointing. He usually would. But Scottie has helped off his man under the assumption that Grady sees the switch. Scottie's helping Grady here because Grady Dick on Joel Embiid is 2 points guaranteed and a foul. So Scottie's trying to help out a teammate. And in this case, this was Grady's worst game by far. Grady has to rotate on Korkmaz. He has to cut him off at the basket, and he doesn't. And I think this is going to result in exactly what I thought it was. And boom. And somehow, despite this complete breakdown, the only person to recover on Korkmaz is Scottie. So when I tell you that he is guarding 2 players at once, sometimes 3 players at once, that's what I mean. Okay, this has been a very sad film breakdown. I think a lot of things will be lost because people do not have the patience to navigate through these thoughts and random ideas that I have. I hope that I'm right about what I'm saying. If I'm wrong, I trust that smarter people than me will be able to email me or tell me where I got something wrong. I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. If you tell me, hey, no, this was scheme, no, this was that. Because look, it's always difficult. It's always difficult. Anyone who tells you that they know 100%, they're lying 100%. You can't know unless you know the coach and you're in the room and you know exactly what their scheme is, right? Like for instance, against the Bucks, right? There was a particular play. It was a side pick and roll, and Dame surrenders a switch, which is not a favorable switch. They take him into the post. It's not a good post up. He's going to get bully balled. It was against the Raptors. I can't remember who the offensive player was. It was either OG or Scottie. Giannis darts down the scram switch. And then as that's happening, Dame is supposed to relocate out to he's supposed to close out to the shooter at the top. He doesn't. And he surrenders an open shot. So you might say, who's at fault there? Clearly Dame, right? But what if, I don't know, for some reason, they were just like, hey, we just want to leave that shooter open. That's the scheme. We want to leave Pascal wide open, or whoever the shooter was, Dennis Schroeder, want to leave him wide open. We don't want to cover him. We just want to give him. I can't imagine a coach would ever say that. But what if that was the scheme? There's another example, like Brook Lopez kind of guarding very high on Jakob pick and rolls, right? So a lot of teams will play drop against Jak, Scottie, Pascal, more so last year than this year, but like especially against Jakob, they drop big time, deep drop coverage. And what this does is, of course, it sort of shrinks the floor for the offense. It allows a defender to hang back in the paint, kind of cuts off driving angles, backdoor, all that shit. And you have a player who sometimes is playing with the basketball with not a defender 10 feet close to him because they don't need to guard him because he's not a threat to shoot. And he can't make you pay from there. So really, I mean, Jakob Poeltl is like a glorified, passer out of the high post or the nail, but like he's not really being contested on these passes a lot. But sometimes coaches will decide, hey, he's such a good passer. Let's at least try to contest the pass. Let's try to put some pressure on the pass. Let's try to, press up a little bit higher on the screen, and let's meet him at the level, and let's not play drop. And that's not really how the Bucks operated under, or how they would have done it under Budenholzer, but maybe that's the way they do it under Griffin. So now if I'm sitting here and saying, oh, Brook Lopez is such an idiot because why would he come up so high? Jakob can't shoot. You don't know if the coach told him to do that. But here I'm listening to the coach. I'm listening to his game plan. I know a lot about his game plan. I've watched him coach for a while. I've read his work on basketball. I know how he thinks a little bit more than I would maybe some other coaches. And so it's very difficult for me, to have a coach like this, and I know what he's preaching, and I know what they're practicing to some extent, and then to have them come out and not execute it, and then have this entire media space pull up stats out of their ass to suggest that it's not working. It's not working because you're not looking. So once again, this is my second video breakdown. I will continue to do these as long as I need to until you guys can be honest. And I would just like for us to just squash the beef and move on. I'm not competing with you. Please understand that. I'm not going to get a media pass probably anytime soon. I'm not trying to make millions of dollars off of this. And by the way, I've been offered jobs by people that would be able to give me a media pass. The same companies you guys work for, I've been offered jobs for those companies. Okay. So I don't need to really go into the specifics of it, but if I need to pull out the emails, I will. I have not chosen to do that because I chose to do this instead. Okay. It's not because I'm stupid, because Pensari Basketball wasn't making any money last year early on, and we weren't monetized, and I still chose to do this. I chose to do this because creative control and integrity and being able to ask questions and answer questions and criticize fairly, in my opinion, trying to be as fair as possible, was very important to me. Having a voice that is not suppressed and is not told that I cannot ask questions or whatever, I need that. It's an important part. I need it to sleep at night. So you've been offered good jobs, but rather sit here from farm donations for all your hating. Yeah, absolutely. I would prefer to do this. And I think Pensari Basketball's growth over the last year has proven, hopefully, or at least as evidence, that something we're doing is correct, even if you don't have to agree with that, and that's cool too. You see, last year, a comment like that would have made me really upset. This year, it doesn't bother me. All right, cool, man. Take care. Have a good one, guys. I hope this live was informative, if not, enjoyable. And I hope the Raptors a lot of success tomorrow against the San Antonio Spurs. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one. Take care. Oh, and make sure to hit this video like for the algorithm so that I can, buy a lollipop with all the money that that is made off of this video. Oh, and to the trolls in the chat, thanks for watching too, man. The ad revenue counts the same. Whether you're hating or you're loving, you're still watching ads. So thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.